saying. They're not getting summaries, they're not getting choppy information, and they're getting to hear every single word that's coming out of your mouth. The translation should be the same for our monolingual parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudiela. Next up is Denise Yvonne Sotelo Mejia. Denise, are you here? Awesome. And I'll go ahead and list the next speaker just so we can have folks save some time. Next speaker will be Stephanie Espinoza. Denise, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Yvonne Sotelo Mejia. I am a former PXU student and a current youth organizer. First and foremost, right, a few months we were here and you guys showed us a graph, not you guys specifically, but somebody else did. And they showed us a graph where number one, Hispanic students, males, are the number ones more criminalized in the entire school district. And then the second one was Hispanic females. Third coming up was Black student males. And then fourth, the females. It's about time, y'all. The investigation that the Department of Justice has opened for the police department, it actually got stretched over to actually also look into the violence that the police department inflicts in the youth. It's time. It's time to get the police out of schools. I understand that there's also a committee, and to be honest with you, there was a committee with a very short time, and I know that not every parent in the room was told, or at least invited. And I know for a fact that not every application process, therefore it's not inclusive. That is not enough. It is not sufficient to just be able to create a committee and then just let it go and slip through the fingers, because that implements other people filling in, okay? Lastly, students should be able to know who is making decisions for them. Our students are brilliant, they're smart, they're socially aware, and they should be able to know who represents them and what, you know, the people in the table are actually doing as well, and how well they're being represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Stephanie, please approach the podium. You have 2 minutes. And next up will be Rosa Aguirre Gutierrez.
Hi there, my name is Stephanie Espinosa, and first of all, I want to speak on the interpretation because we were here last month for the special meeting, and interpretation was the same issue we had. Expanding accessibility to that does not only mean getting more headsets. It means quality interpretation for our folks. Our folks had to move their lives around, had to take care of childcare. They had to get off of work early to be here, so we demand respect for their time and for their presence because they are trying to participate and be active participants of these processes. I'm also here to speak on the safety committee that was established during that last meeting because, well, they're an action advocate for this, but it was missing two important components that needed to be a part of this, and one is political education. We need our folks to receive Policing 101 history so they can know the role of police in our communities and how it's affected our communities along the way. We believe this is important for them to know to be able to make the best decisions they can around the safety plan. And second, we need to have a clear public participation process given to the committee so folks like these that are in this room can participate on the decision making and that are aware of the discussions happening, and again, including that interpretation aspect to it. Thank you. One last thing. I do want to say I also support in moving voting age to 16-year-olds because this will allow our youth to actively, one, start participating in that voting process, and two, elect the members that are going to be sitting up here who are going to make active decisions about their everyday lives and how it impacts their education.
Thank you, Stephanie. Rosa Aguirre Gutierrez. All right. Rosa, please come and speak at the podium. You have 2 minutes. And then next speaker will be Shalay Flores.
Hi, my name is Rosa. I'm a ex-student from Trevor Brown High School. I also work with organizing, and this is only my second time attending one of these school board meetings, and while I was a student in the Phoenix Union High School, I never knew that these meetings happened, and I feel that really goes to show how this lacks transparency. And we're out here, you guys are voting on things that are affecting our students, but they're not even here. Or there's only a few of them, very select few that are invited into these meetings. So I want to know, like, how are we going to invite students to these meetings? How are we letting them know that these meetings are happening? I don't know if there's like announcements at the school, more information about how to get here, when they are, and details about the meetings, because they aren't even aware that the decisions that are being made about their day-to-day lives at school are being done without them. And we can't be making decisions without the students present. As well, not just the students, but their parents as well. There are parents that do want to be involved in this process, and they show up and they aren't even aware of what's going on, and that's not really fair, because you guys know that the majority of our PXU students are Hispanic and they come from Spanish-speaking homes, and when their parents come here, they want to know what's going on, and they don't have the proper translation. I think that you guys can afford to have a proper translator who can know how to translate properly, word for word, and not just have quick summaries, because they deserve to have that same information. So we need to have better information for our students and parents that want to be more involved, and include them in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Next speaker will be Shalay Flores. Following Shalay Flores will be Vidi Hernandez.
Hi, I'm speaking in regards to the safety committee. Okay, so as a reminder for what real progress looks like, our accountability process has only just begun. So it's great that it's here. So frankly, any kind of anxiousness or distrust by students or staff around police should be enough for you to give zero money to police, but that's currently not the case. You certainly don't want to you certainly don't want to let us down like the Phoenix City Council did, who undermined our work to enact a civilian oversight committee and diluted any hope for transparency and accountability that is community-led. So I'm here with Bullet in Action. We're here to ensure that the community will have opportunity to provide input on the plan through December. We're here to ensure that the Safety and Health Committee is provided comprehensive political education about the violent history of police. It's not enough to remove cops physically from campus. We must unlearn the culture of punishment and cut all ties with law enforcement. And lastly, out of love and respect for students and staff, they deserve plans that are well thought out, not thrown together last minute, or involve at all the deadliest police force in the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalay. Next up will be Vidi Hernandez. Following Vidi will be Mirabel Espinoza. Is Vidi over there or online? Okay. Next speaker will be Mirabel Espinoza. Mirabel, are you here? Please come to the podium. Following Mirabel will be Martha Avendano.
Hello, school board members. My name is Mirabel Lopez, and I am currently an alumni from the Phoenix Union High School District. Students are most impacted by any decision made here in the school board level. Therefore, students should need to elect the people who will be making those decisions for them. And those are the decisions that impact them the most. As a student alumni during my 4 years of high school, my peers and I were never made aware of these major decisions that would greatly impact us, let alone choose who gets to make those decisions for us. If the school board really values inclusivity and student empowerment, then you would all ensure that there's ways to receive student input. And that includes electing electing school board officials. Students who attend your school should not only be made aware of all the decisions you guys make to risk their lives, but they should also get a say on who stays in this school board and those who actually seek out for them and make sure that they're safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Maribel.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Martha Avendano. Martha, are you here? Please come to the podium. And the following speaker will be Estela Varela. And for interpretation, you'll have 4 minutes.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marta. Yo voy a hablar sobre el Comité de Seguridad.
She said, "Good afternoon, my name is Martha, and I will talk about the Student Safety Committee."
Yo como madre de familia y miembro de la comunidad me gustaría que tanto yo como mis hijos adolescentes y miembros de este distrito escolar podamos participar en este tipo de juntas y decisiones sobre la seguridad escolar.
She says, as a mother and a member of this community, I would like not only myself, but for my teenage and teenage children to also be part of this meeting that the district holds.
Los estudiantes y los miembros de la comunidad quieren participar en este tipo de reuniones de la Junta, en reuniones de la Junta Escolar, pero los comentarios públicos y el plan de seguridad escolar, pero somos excluidos, nunca en los planes nos toman a votar y no hemos tenido la oportunidad de hacer preguntas o comentarios. No se puede votar sobre un plan de seguridad escolar si la opinión de los estudiantes o su proceso de votación debe de incluirnos a nosotros como padres y a nuestros hijos como estudiantes.
The students and the members of this community would like to participate in these meetings, and we also should be able to take into consideration when it comes to the Student Safety Committee. All the comments that are made, los comentarios públicos. All the comments that are made, we would like to also come in and make comments, but we are always excluded. We have not actually been given a chance to vote. We have not had a chance to give our input, and I honestly don't think that a student safety committee should move forth without the opinion of the students and without the opinion of the parents. It affects them the most, and it affects our community the most.
Los estudiantes y padres de poder estamos trabajando en una propuesta para crear un comité de salud y de seguridad estudiantil donde podamos reunirnos y hablar sobre cómo satisfacer nuestras necesidades de seguridad sin depender únicamente del castigo, la criminación y la vigilancia de la policía.
The students and parents at Poder are working together to propose and also create a committee of health and security specifically for our students, where we can all meet and discuss these things and discuss student safety without depending solely on criminalization and vigilance.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, señora. The next speaker will be Estela Varela. Buenas noches, señora. Tienes 4 minutos.
Buenas noches. Hola, mi nombre es Estela y también voy a hablar de la seguridad sobre el comité escolar. Estoy aquí para pedir a los miembros de la Junta Escolar que estudiantes, padres y comunidad deben participar en las decisiones finales sobre la seguridad escolar.
Hi, my name. I'm also going to be talking about the Safety Student Committee. I am here to ask that the members of this community, the students and the parents also be able to participate on the decisions, the final decisions around this committee.
Ya que las escuelas no están solo ocupadas por maestros, sino que todos formamos parte de ella.
As school is not only filled with teachers, but we all take part of that community.
Como comunidad debemos tener participación antes de la votación sobre el plan final del comité de diciembre.
As a community, we should take participation into the vote. We should participate and also be able to vote in regards to the plans before December or by December.
Así también proporcionando al comité de educación política que incluya una historia de vigilancia.
Also to include that the Student Safety Committee should have political education in regards to vigilance.
Necesitamos un facilitador para el comité que esté alineado con que el castigo y la criminalización no son la respuesta correcta para los jóvenes.
We need a facilitator for that committee that is actually aligned with the fact that criminalization and punishment is not the only way to go and to be able to support our youth.
Hagan que los procesos de reclutamiento y participación sean accesibles e inclusivos. Creo que pueden hacer el mayor esfuerzo para asegurarse que llegue a las personas de manera más accesible como los anuncios.
The process of recruitment and participation has to be more accessible and also a lot more inclusive. I believe that you guys can put a big effort towards this to assure this, and for it to go to all folks and for it to be more accessible.
Sabemos también que al final del día los estudiantes son los más afectados por cualquier decisión que se tome a nivel de la junta escolar. Entonces, pensando en los estudiantes, creo que ellos deben elegir a las personas que tomarán las decisiones que más les impacten.
We also know that at the end of the day, the students are going to be the most impacted, and they should be able to also say and have a say on on whatever decision is being made as it affects their lives the most.
Si la junta escolar realmente valora la inclusión y el empoderamiento de los estudiantes, entonces todos se asegurarán que los estudiantes aporten sus opiniones.
If this district really values the inclusion and the empowerment of the students, I think that you guys will then make sure that the students also have options and opinions.
Queremos una escuela saludable, con estudiantes felices, maestros contentos por venir a trabajar y una comunidad informada.
We want a healthy school with students who are happy, teachers who are happy to come to work, and a community that is very well informed.
Gracias por su atención.
Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias, señora. The next speaker will be Maria Gutierrez. Maria, please come to the podium if you're here, or if you're online. Okay. Next speaker will be, Alma Chavez. Alma, please come to the podium if you're here. Buenas noches, señora. Tienes 4 minutos.
Okay, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Alma y yo como madre de 2 estudiantes en la high school, vengo a decirles que cualquier decisión que tomen ustedes, los más afectados son los estudiantes. Y por eso yo quiero que ellos emitan también su voto, como en Oakland, que los jóvenes de 17, 18 años ya pueden emitir su voto. Porque aquí las personas toman decisiones y son decisiones muy importantes. Es lo que yo quiero para que sean los estudiantes también que estén participando.
She said, as a mother of 2 teenagers, I would like for my children to be a little bit more included in the process in these meetings. She referenced the city of Oakland and how 16-year-olds are able to vote in school board elections because she believes that the students should make enough decisions, or that are smart enough to make their own decision to be able to vote y'all in. And as a mother, she says that that's what she is. She says that's her main point.
Eso es todo lo que yo les quiero pedir, nomás que también incluyan a los jóvenes y a los padres para las decisiones que ustedes tomen.
She said just to include the parents and all the students on the decisions you guys make.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señora. Next speaker will be Ariana Mejia. Ariana, are you here? Or are you online? Okay. Next speaker will be Angel. I don't have a last name, just Angel. Okay. Jose Mendoza. Jose Mendoza, are you here? Quirino Indiz. Are you here? Chris Perez? Chris Perez, are you here? Again, first name only. Valerie? Is Valerie here? And then Renee Dominguez. Renee, it looks like you're online, so feel free to speak when you can. You'll have 2 minutes. Thank you. Renee, you should be good to go. Just go ahead and speak up. You may be muted. Feel free to unmute if that's the case.
Okay, sorry, I'll try again. My name
We can
is
hear
Renee
you.
Dominguez. Okay, my name is Renee Dominguez, and I have a current freshman at Phoenix Union High School. I have 6 former students that attended Phoenix Union schools. I'm addressing 12A. I'm kind of in a disagreement with the safety. We were informed. I've been, and I had a lot of parents that went to the coffee with the principal at Carl Hayden High School. We were given information about the safety, the Student Safety Committee, how to process, and then on August 18th, we were also given an email, a text message regarding that if you wanted to become involved. So I think people need to pay attention to their emails, and if they don't have an email, they need to pay attention to their text messages, because everybody mainly has a cell phone. I'm not in agreement with removing police from our schools. I'm sorry, you're giving a negative impression to students that they should fear law enforcement because they're an authority figure. We have a new interim police chief coming in. He's barely starting this month. He's not even given a chance to address any of the issues that we face with former police chief and former issues. So I'm not in agreement with that. With the current situation, today a threat at Central High School, another one at Sierra Linda. I mean, every day you seem to hear about threats to the school. We don't have proper security on our campuses to address the needs when you've got, now you're saying at one lunch period, 3,000 students out at one time, and maybe how many security personnel there to address it. I just don't agree. The other issue of 16, 17-year-olds, I think that's a Maricopa County decision due to the fact that the voting age in Arizona is 18, and I pulled up the governing board election and candidate information, and you have to be a registered voter.
And then, and thank you for your time and sharing your voice with us. Next up is Mr. Eric Kemp. Eric Kemp, are you here? Okay. No worries. I know we got a lot of seating right now, so. Oh. And our next speaker, after Mr. Kemp will be Alejandro Montes.
I'm Eric Kemp. I'm the principal at Linda Educational Academy. Good evening, Governing Board President, Governing Board members, Superintendent Dr. Gessen, executive leadership team that are present, and our community. I'm going to take this opportunity to bring attention to a donation of $10,000 that was given to Linda Educational Academy in the Phoenix Union High School District. The Governing Board accepted that grant from the Burton Family Foundation last month, but without a whole lot of fanfare. So I wanted to make sure that the community knows how appreciative Linda Brill is for that. So I'm pleased to inform you that we did receive $10,000 from the Burton Family Foundation, a supporting organization of the Arizona Community Foundation. This award is designed to support and start and continue initiatives and programs including ACT test prep, onboarding, positive behavior intervention systems, which we call the RISE Academy at Linda Brill, student achievement and recognition assemblies, campus luncheons, and multicultural initiatives including Black and Latino education conferences for students and staff. So please, join me in just acknowledging the Burton Family Foundation for their generous grant. Much of those funds will be used for multicultural initiatives. One such initiative I had the opportunity to take advantage of this summer at my own expense. I traveled to Bowie State University, a historically black college and university in Bowie, Maryland. And I had the opportunity to work with other black educators from across the country. And I'm proud to say that my son and we represented Arizona. The event was very successful. There were 70 students from many states, including Louisiana, Michigan, Maryland, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Florida, Texas, and Alabama, and, of course, Arizona. This was sponsored by the National Alliance of Black School Educators, and this annual Youth and Male
Principal
Female
Kim.
Leadership Summit.
We're at the 2-minute timer, and I apologize to cut you off, but we're being strict with all the speakers.
No problem. The last thing I just want to say in conclusion is that I really hope that Phoenix Union High School District will continue to support multicultural events. This is an annual summit for young leaders, and I really would love to see Phoenix Union students attend that in the future. And there are also many opportunities for our own educators to go to these types of conferences.
Great.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Principal Kim. Alejandro Montes. Alejandro, you'll have 2 minutes here at the podium. Thank you.
Hi board, hi community. My name is Alejandro Montes. I'm with AZ Poder and Poder in Action. And really we're here today. You know, I think y'all heard most of my colleagues, they pretty much touched everything already, but we are really looking to see the governing board moving with community and taking lead from community as the safety plan is being drafted. Obviously, we're not too hyped about the translation issues. It's the second time it's happened. Hopefully, that'll get better. But yeah, just really wanted to get a strong safety plan, something that is not giving a single dollar more to Phoenix PD. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. All right, and that concludes the public comment. President,
is it possible to call through the names that you read at the beginning when we had the technical difficulties with the system?
do we have any folks that have signed in that since we started?
Do you guys see new names or new numbers on there?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Did you need something, Nikita?
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge, we heard a lot tonight about changing the voting age to 16 for governing board members. And I want to make sure that we all are able to make informed decisions. And so hopefully we're open to listening to our attorneys speak later about that to let us know what is involved in changing that voting age from 18 to 16. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Oh, sorry, Ms. Pastor. I'm sorry. Stanford didn't see me, so I didn't know what to do. I would like to speak about the interpreters. I would like to see a certified interpreter like we had in the past, and be able then to have it's not necessarily the proper interpretation, but be able to have the equipment and all the other pieces. I think it's difficult when we have an employee interpret and they're not necessarily certified interpreters. And so I think it's very important that we have that moving towards the future.
No. Noted.
Thank you.
Noted.
Dr.
Yeah.
Guest?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Noted.
Okay. Mr. Prescott?
Yes, and sorry for calling on people. I got used to calling on people at the last meeting, and
a couple of meetings.
I apologize. I apologize. That said, I would like to make a motion if I may to. But it sounds like other people still have comments, so I would like to make a motion after comments.
We cannot make motions based on items that were raised
to reorganize the agenda, not to not
yes.
acting on anything we heard tonight.
We can do that, and just to make clear, so that was a direction to that's totally fine within the public.
Okay,
yeah.
Ms. Ross?
Dr. G, another thing that I noticed is each time we had our monolingual speakers, they had to have someone from the group in interpret for them. So it seems like it's not enough just to have one person. I think we need to also have an additional certified to use Vice Mayor Pastor's advice to have a second person at the podium to translate so that we're not making the responsibility of the community to provide their own interpretation.
Perfect. President Alston and to all members of the board, we'll make sure we host a meeting soon to talk about next steps around translation interpreting services.
Okay. Now, go for it.
Thank you, Senator Alston. I would like to make a motion to move items 9K, 9L, 9M, 9N, 9O, 9P, and 9Q to this part of the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
A motion has been made to move.
To move.
Oh,
and then you
Dr. Gaston.
Right. Okay, President Alston, members of the board, so we've had a motion and a second to move those items up. I just want to, as we typically intro these items for the board, Linda, make sure we have the right order.
We need to approve moving them up, and
Okay.
then we can have the discussion
Perfect,
about
okay.
them and make a
Excellent,
motion for
excellent.
them.
Thank What you.
are we
So
moving?
go ahead with the motion.
I believe we're moving items 9I
9K,
through
9K, 9L, 9M, 9N, 9O, 9P, 9Q. Basically all the items about employee salaries and packages and benefits.
Second.
Okay.
That's what I was going to summarize.
A motion has been made by Mr. Prescott, seconded by Ms. Ross, to move items 9K, 9L, 9M, 9N, 9O, 9P, and 9Q up and as the next item on the agenda, and then we'll go back and catch the rest of them.
Yep.
Any questions, any discussion on those motions, that motion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, Dr. Gaston.
Perfect, okay. President Alston, members of the board, and Phoenix Union community, thank you, board member and Clerk Prescott, for moving these up. As you heard and was alluded to, these are all the items negotiated in IBN related especially to compensation. As you heard at the podium tonight, especially from our association presidents, that the salary packages before the governing board, as well as, just to make sure that we're quickly, guest teacher pay, supervision pay, COVID leave, and the evaluation for certified, all a part of the IBM process. But in particular tonight, a few items that I want to highlight publicly is the salary packages for classified, certified, and administrative. And as you heard, the new, with governing board approval tonight, the new minimum wage in Phoenix Union would be $16 an hour. The starting teacher salary would be $52,200. And then as the governing board knows, last spring we connected the administrative salary schedule to classified and certified, so those move up appropriately as well. And as you heard from our association presidents and can see by presence tonight, not only do they recommend approval, we recommend approval of the items set before you tonight.
Madam Chair, are we doing discussion?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, can we approve them in mass?
Yeah, we
Okay,
moved
I
them in
will-
mass, approved them in mass.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All
I
right.
will make a motion to approve 9K, 9L, 9M, 9N, 9O, and 9P, and
Okay.
9Q.
A motion
Second.
has been made by Ms. Para and seconded by Mr. Prescott, Mr. Stanford. Okay. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Para.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, colleagues, and Dr. Geston, I think I mentioned this when we approved our package earlier this year to increase to $14 an hour. So when I started as a school board member in 2014, 2015, the minimum wage in Phoenix Union was $9 and some change. And so just in this short time under the leadership of this board and Dr. Geston and our leadership team, we've seen tremendous growth in our base pay for both our classified and certified employees, because I think our teachers at the time were also high 30s. So we've grown a lot at Phoenix Union, and certainly know that we have work to do, but I'm so proud that we've hit this milestone, really setting the bar for the rest of the state.
Mr. Prescott.
I'll echo what Board Member Parra said. I am really excited that we have these items before us tonight. Our teachers do incredible work in the classroom. Our education support professionals do incredible work to support our teachers. I am very excited that we're able to offer $16 as a minimum wage. I'm very excited that we're able to offer $52,200 as a starting wage for teachers. And I'm just excited that we're voting on these tonight.
Ms. Pastor?
I'm just excited for everybody in this room. And congratulations for all your work. Most importantly, I'm proud of my colleagues for seeing the value of everyone that supports this large system. And a lot of times people talk, but I believe our actions speak louder than words, and it also demonstrates our behavior of what we really truly believe in and our values. So thank you to my colleagues for doing this. Thank you for advocating and continue to advocate.
Any other comments by members? Mr.
Yes, Madam President. Thank you. In June, when we voted on the budget for the school year, I voted against that budget, and this was the number one issue for me in making that decision, was making sure that we got to a living wage for the lowest paid employees in the district. So first want to thank Senator Alston for your work at the legislature to make this possible, and all the other members at the legislature that made this possible, because I know we didn't have the additional funding to make this possible without the work that you all did until sine die. And then secondly, I would just say that this is a big step forward for the lowest paid employees in the district. But I'll repeat what I said in June, that the fight for 15 started 10 years ago, in 2012, in New York City, and they were saying that was what a living wage should be in New York City, and then it expanded across the country. And so 10 years later, with cost of living rising, we were able to finally surpass $15 an hour here in Phoenix Union. But I think the conversations I'm having with constituents this summer and still today, $16 an hour is still really hard for a lot of people to live and to support a family and pay rent for anywhere in vicinity of our schools. So I think over the long term, as urgently as possible, we need to start big conversations about how do we get to $20 an hour for the lowest paid employees in the district.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations. Great job, everyone. Thank you so much for getting us to this point. The next item is 5A, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented, and is there a second?
I motion.
Second.
That's off of this one.
Okay.
A motion has been made by Ms. Ross. Was that a second, Ms. Pastor, or Ms. Parra? And seconded by Ms. Parra. On the motion, is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Ms.
So generally, a consent agenda, there's no discussion. If you'd like to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion, you can do so and then vote on the rest of it without discussion.
What if you want to pull an item for continuation?
Yeah, and that's not on consent. When we get to 11P, I'll
Okay.
make a motion.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So on the motion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. The next item is 6A, the superintendent's report. Dr. Geston,
Great.
take it away.
All right, and I'm going to breeze through my slides and then have one video I want to show you. First of all, the first 3 slides were just my way to say thank you to everybody for a successful launch of the school year. Part of the reason why we were confident in stretching salary and benefits discussions is that our enrollment is up. Depending on the day, it's somewhere between 550 and 1,000. We're one of the only large systems in America that actually is increasing in enrollment, so thank you to every single person in our system driving the strength of our brand and our marketing. I also just wanted to thank everyone for their engagement in PXU Next. We did publish a link, next@phoenixunion.org, trying to continue to seek feedback from our employees and our community. Many themes are emerging. We continue to encourage our broader community to send us your thoughts on Next at Phoenix Union. One of the top 2 themes that we hear, actually the top 3 that I noticed here, is employee wellness. Continues to be top of mind for our employees. Second is safety in every way, shape, or form. And then third, that we saw on our Next at Phoenix Union was just a encouragement for us to continue to revisit our sustainability efforts. Are we as green as we should be in Phoenix Union? And so we'll bring back some of those topics to the board in the future. This slide was just our way of once again thanking the Phoenix Union Foundation for education, for all its work. You heard the report tonight, and you can tell that the foundation is doing incredible work under the leadership of that board and Laura. Also wanted to congratulate Mr. Kenneth Whitley. Every month we have many teachers receive many awards, many employees receive many awards. We don't get a chance to highlight every single one, but just wanted to show another great example of quality teaching at Carl Hayden Community High School. I saw some claps and applause there in the middle. In addition, we were the only school district in the state of Arizona that had 2 teachers in the top 10 for Teacher of the Year. I don't remember the last time that happened in my career. And proud to say that moving into the top 5 in the state is one of our teachers, Ms. Shanahan. So Ms. Shanahan is officially a top 5 finalist. And who knows, could be our second Arizona Teacher of the Year in just the last 5 years. We'll find out in the coming weeks if Ms.
What's in the
Shanahan-
water at Maryville?
Pardon me?
What's in
Yeah,
the
what's
water
in the
at
water in Maryville?
Maryville?
That would be pretty incredible. That's true.
Yeah.
Also, just want to remind us, and I believe Board Member Marquez alluded to this earlier today, coronavirus isn't gone. COVID's not gone. It's with us. It's among us. We continue to track the spread of COVID in our zip codes. It does look much better today than it did last time we were together. On the consent agenda this evening, the board did approve for us to continue doing testing on our sites, and so we will continue to do testing to make sure that, especially as things come and go and spike and decline, that we are able to offer testing on our sites as best as possible. And then my final couple slides, just want to remind the broader community that one of the most important things we do in Phoenix Union is support National Voter Registration Day. That's September 20th. Governing Board, you will get invitations to identify a site to come if you would like, speak, engage with our community. I want to thank Alyssa Tarkington and Cindy Tercero for continuing to push national voter registration in Phoenix Union. A few years ago, we either had the most or one of the most high school registrations in the nation, one of the most successful registration events. And so thank you to our team for continuing to push registration. And then finally, well, second to last, I want to thank Ms. Tarkington, Ms. Andrade, and everyone involved in our counseling and college services. We have a bunch of incredible college programming at every different level. This particular Superintendent Service Corps is an opportunity to pull together some of the highest performing students district-wide, identified about 50 students district-wide who want to get into the most elite colleges, and they're coming together to learn how to get into Tier 1 universities. I want to thank our counselors, Terry Haggerty and so many others, for pulling that together. But again, college is for everyone, not just the most elite. And so as we talk about college, career, and life, college can be community college, it can be local college, it also can be out-of-state, private colleges. And so this just is a reminder that college is 24/7 all year around. And so we've already done our lift-off events, and we'll continue to support our students, many of whom are first gen heading off to college. And then finally, a brief video. There were a couple videos this month. We couldn't share them all. You had a chance to see the Academies at South Mountain video. A really heartwarming story came out of Central High School with a head varsity football coach. And I think it shows the incredible ethic and values of our employees, how much they love our children and serve our children. I also love how incredibly resilient and brilliant our students are. And so here's just a couple-minute video of a heartwarming story out of Central High School.
But out at Central High School, football led to a whole new family and one player who is 9,000 miles from home.
1, 2, 3, go time! And this is the family right here. I ain't gonna lie.
Ismail Faz finally feels at home.
Always like my family right here in Central.
Off the field, he finally has a place to call home with Central High School head football coach Chandler Hovick and his wife Krishana.
I was a quarterback, I would have ran you over. Oh, no.
I've never had, this situation where I feel like he's my son, and having him on the team and him being such a great kid and a leader, it brings me a lot of happiness and joy to be able to see that every day.
Stay square as long as I can.
Izzy, that's the nickname coach gave him, is a 17-year-old refugee from Burundi, Africa. What was life?
Tough.
Still tough for your family?
Tough, yeah. It's still tough.
One of 6 siblings, he came to the U.S. looking for a better life and future for his family.
I try to keep my grade all the time, like up. This is like, I don't mean like have a C or D. I'm happy on that one. Nah, I like to have A.
A soccer player by habit, Coach first met Izzy during a PE class 2 years ago. He was booting the ball, and the Bobcats really needed a kicker.
Started talking to him. I said, I want you to come out tomorrow, see if you like football, and he was willing to do so.
Izzy is fluent in 7 different languages, but American football wasn't one of them.
I didn't know anything. But the thing is, it was like all the drills in soccer we're doing too.
Just like adapting to life in a new country, football clicked right away.
Good. Good rep right there.
Izzy has turned into the team's top lockdown cornerback and an automatic kicker.
My mom, the first day I told I will start playing football. It was like, where's the football? Football American, the one that be hitting people like? I was like, yes, the one that be hitting each other. No, my son, I don't want you to die, this and this. Mama, everything you have to go into is hard. You're not going to go easy way. Life is hard every day.
Coach Hovick wanted more for Izzy. The idea, get him out of the group home and move him into their home.
I knew it wasn't the best situation, and he wasn't getting all the experiences that a teenage young man should.
First, I was like, I've never done this in my life, so like, I don't know what to think. Just like the second I met him, I loved him. Like I was like, oh my god, like this kid needs to be in our house now.
I was smiling. I was like, somebody, like, finally I got somebody.
The Hovicks went from having no kids of their own to having one that was 10 years younger than them.
He definitely makes the house a ton of fun.
All day long.
That's all I hear downstairs is just them screaming up there and.
Now we home. What's up, man? My name is Izzy. What's your name?
From viral TikToks to sing-along car rides, a lot of firsts for this new family.
The first day I moved to the house. I just wake up in the mirror and I look my room. This is my room for real.
He's a growing boy. Our food bill is not cheap right now. His first time trying bowling and he's 17 years old.
Oh my god!
That's me right there. That's me right there. Thank you so much for give me a chance to live with y'all, and I take it like my family.
He's a great kid. He just makes us laugh all the time, and I don't know what our lives would honestly be like if he wasn't in it.
Izzy's future now has endless possibilities, but he's got a 3-step plan to go along with making straight A's in school.
If I don't make on football, I'm gonna be a doctor. If I don't make a doctor, I'm gonna be a firefighter, help people. I'm gonna save your life.
3 lives already changed forever.
And I believe Coach was actually is a Phoenix Union alum as well, and is now, at the time, was the youngest ever head football coach in Arizona history. And just thought that was an incredible story I wanted to share with the board. And with that, that ends my report for the night.
Thank you. The next item is 7A, District Additional Assistance, Override Maintenance and Operations, Override and Bond Presentation. Dr. Gaston.
All right, President Alston, Governing Board, and public, this should make you very happy. We did this presentation as a flipped presentation, so the board got it ahead of time. It's posted online. I will zoom through this for the public so you know what you can find online. Every year, we come to the Governing Board in September or October to give a presentation on our bond and override. All of our work of the district implementing bond override is found inside of Commitment 9 in our strategic plan. We have to come publicly and post based on statute, as you see up there, 15-481 and 15-491, that we have to publicly report our expenditures and the work to our taxpayers. And what you will find in online for taxpayers and community that wants to see is an update on our M&O override, an update on our district additional assistance override. Phoenix Union also had a 2011 bond that we have finally closed out. It took 11 years to close out every penny of the 2011 bond. That's quite the feat. We also are about halfway through our expenditures in our 2017 bond, although the last part will go pretty fast. Well, then you'll also see in the report, just so that we show the public and our taxpayers and our board, is what specifically did we pay for inside of our overrides and our bonds. In this report, we publicly show pictures and images that ranges everything from work inside of classrooms, technology, software, furniture, equipment, instructional aids. Phoenix Union continues to be fully committed to clubs, sports, arts. Of course, safety is top of mind. Safety is very complex. But one part of safety is facility safety, technology safety. All that is a part of our bond and override programs. We also allow schools to pick smaller projects, and so what you see inside of the presentation are things like turf and water stations and skateboard racks. We also have larger projects on our larger schools, such as marquees, bike racks. You also see that we continue to work on fields, as well as our stadiums, performing arts centers, and also infrastructure, things that may not be as exciting, like HVAC and repairs and elevators, which can be quite expensive. And then you also saw today that inside of our freshman success video, we highlighted new furniture. The truth is, Phoenix Union would love to, potentially out of this next bond, we would love to refresh every single furniture item in Phoenix Union. If you're not a freshman teacher, you're in sophomore, junior, senior classrooms. Many of you still have the old clunky 1980s, 90s furniture. And we would love to see this really cool new flexible furniture all throughout Phoenix Union, which will lead us to our new bond here in a second. And of course, a huge part of bond and override is infrastructure and devices for technology, including our digital divide project that Vice Mayor has done an incredible job pushing at the city. And then some sneak peeks. We continue to work on this building and other buildings across Phoenix Union, building a data center at DSF, continuing to work on transportation infrastructure. If you did not see it, we have one of the coolest new marquees in Phoenix on I-17. We have several other projects underway that you can find inside of this report. And finally, just wanted to remind the broader community, and as we've mentioned in previous board meetings, that we do plan to bring to the governing board in the spring of 2023 a proposal for the board to call for an election for a 2023 bond. And we will continue to work on what that bond package would look like, how we would spend those dollars, part infrastructure, part new projects. We will work in the coming months to work with the board, work with the community to bring a bond proposal to you all, very likely in April or May for an election in 2023, but more on bond 2023 to come. But just wanted to quickly highlight the flipped presentation that the governing board got. If you're a taxpayer or a community member, all of this information can be found on our website. With that, President Alston, I will turn it back to you for the next item.
Thank you. Members, are there any comments, questions? Thank you. The next item is item 7B, perspectives, reflections, and lived experiences shared by Black students, parents, and staff. Dr. Gaston.
President Alston and members of the board, at previous board meetings, we've, Ms. Jimenez and others at the podium, I know that a couple of board members, especially Vice Chair, have asked us to revisit where are we at with our focus group survey and work with our Black students, parents, and staff, and what does that mean for overall DEI or JEDI, as you'll hear today in Phoenix Union. And I want to thank Ms. Michelle Gales, our executive team. You'll hear from Thea Andrade and Juve Lopez as well. But so many people are involved in the work of equity inclusion here in Phoenix Union. And for tonight's update and presentation, I turn it over to Ms. Michelle Gales, our Chief Strategy Officer.
Thank you, Dr. Geston. Good evening, President Alston, Governing Board, Dr. Geston, and community. Tonight, we have the honor of presenting perspectives, reflections, perspectives, and lived experiences as shared by our students, their parents, and guardians, and our staff that identify in the Black African American African diaspora. We engage with and learned from our Black community over the course of a year, and then work to identify common themes that would help us serve them better. Uh-oh. I think I got it. There you go. Our strategic plan was designed to embed justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout it. You will find, however, that this work is closely tied to commitments 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. In tonight's discussion, we will walk through the background and process for how we engaged in dialogue with our Black community, the common themes that surfaced from those conversations, what action has and will look like, and future engagement. For the purpose of tonight's discussion, we will often refer to our community members that identify in the Black African American African diaspora as Black or African American. You will also hear us use the term JEDI, which is Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. We are familiar also that other communities are beginning to add an A to this acronym to represent access. So let's begin with the why. Phoenix Union Schools of Opportunity welcome, love, and inspire all students to go places and do things that matter. The work of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion is for every student, staff, and parent and community member that calls Phoenix Union home. Later in the presentation tonight, we will discuss how we will engage every member of our community in our inclusion work, from students to staff to parents, cutting across all demographics. We will do so through 2 lenses. First, to ensure that we meet the needs of every individual, including understanding how those needs might be impacted by their demographic identity. And second, to engage them to play an active role in supporting the success of their fellow Phoenix Union community members. It is also important to know that we believe in order to serve everyone well, sometimes means creating time and holding space to do focused work with subsets of our community, which is what we have done recently and what we are focused on for our discussion this evening. We chose to begin this journey to improve justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion with our Black students, parents, and staff who have experienced the impact of systemic racism and have often had their voices marginalized. Recent national and global civic unrest has once again shed light on this ongoing history of harm. It has also increased awareness, advocacy, and action, as you see with Black Lives Matter and other efforts intended to get at the heart of these issues. As shared by Dr. Guestin in a 2019 convocation address to staff, Phoenix Union is not immune to this, and he spoke to our beautiful yet broken history. And we believe we have a role in dismantling systems of oppression that harm our community and anyone in it. This is evident in our strategic plan and in the actions you have taken as a governing board through policy adoptions like our anti-discrimination policies and other resolutions. As you can see here in this graph, African American students, parents, and staff are a vibrant thread throughout our Phoenix Union community. About 9.5% of our students and 12% of our staff identify in the Black, African American, African diaspora. While this is a smaller percentage than other demographics within our district, there are a few important things to note about this number. It actually represents the largest percent of Black high school students served by any high school district in our state. It is arguably the largest percentage of Black staff in any high school district in our state. And from a percentage perspective, when you think about staff representation, it is actually rare that you have a greater representation of Black staff than you do students. In fact, Phoenix Union was recently recognized in a national article as one of very few districts that have the greatest diversity of staff out of all the districts in the country. The article acknowledges the importance and need for teachers of color. It speaks to the challenges districts have faced in diversifying their teaching staff and how slow-moving progress has been. But it also calls out how Phoenix Union is bucking this trend by having greater staff diversity. And in the article, Dr. Guestin speaks to the importance of setting a clear goal and working towards it. We are excited to celebrate this about our district and who we are, and also simultaneously understand that is not enough. We have the opportunity and actually the imperative to build the next generation of Black leaders and contributors in our community. This is why we leaned in, to understand their journey and experiences so that it might inform our action, knowing that it will both improve outcomes for them directly, but also benefit our community as a whole. So I'd like to take a moment to talk to you a little bit about the action that we took and what this process looked like of engaging our Black community over the course of the last year and a half. From August 2020 through May 2021, we actually conducted focus groups and had surveys for our staff and conducted interviews. We actually used staff facilitators and also hired consultants to work with our adults to create a safe space. Between June 2021 and November 2021, this is when we really analyzed our results. So a facilitator worked on our results. Our consultants really pulled together that information and developed reports that were given to our district leadership. And common themes were identified across all groups, both in celebrations and areas of focus. We then shared the information back with our community. Those participants that participated in this process asked that we share that information back with them. And so we shared those reports and common themes with the governing board, and then we also had a staff session in December of 2021 where we offered a dialogue with the executive leadership team about the report and outcomes, and we also offered sessions with our students, parents, and staff that have participated in the process. Since February 2022, we've really been focused on action. The executive team reviewed all of the input from the original process to the reports to the common themes and even to the listening sessions that we held in February. We did more data dives and looked at all the information and began with our concurrent action that we'll talk about in a little bit. So let's talk about the common themes that surfaced across all of our conversations with Black students, their parents, and staff. First, I'll talk about the celebrations. Our students, our parents, and our staff talked about their really excitement about the opportunity to engage in dialogue around what's working and what's not working, and asked that we continue to do that. Repeatedly, we heard about amazing staff that connect and support our Black students, whether it's from the classroom, to the front office, to the cafeteria, to our campus leaders. There was always amazing conversation about our staff. And then finally, another celebration was our existing activities that celebrate Black heritage and culture, and ask that we continue those practices and that we actually build on and offer more. When we looked at common themes across all groups, we also identified 5 areas for growth: to increase culturally relevant curriculum, instruction, activities, and supports; to improve safety from bias, microaggressions, and disproportionality; to increase Black staff representation; to improve culturally informed communication, engagement, and leadership; and to engage all in the work. For the next few minutes, Ms. Andrade, Mr. Lopez, and I are going to share our actions aligned to the areas for growth that I just talked about. Before we begin, I would like to share a few thoughts about our current actions. We are very proud of our progress we have made and that we will make to build upon our celebrations and to address our areas for growth. But please know 3 things as you listen. 1, when it comes to the work of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, it's never fast enough. 2, we are not yet where we need to be, and we have much more work that needs to be done. And 3, this work is not easy, and it cannot be done in isolation. Just to talk about a few best practices that are informing our next steps. First, it is wise to learn from experts. And so we are engaged with collaboratives across the country with equity leaders so that we can learn what's working. We can lean in challenging discussions to talk about what's not. And so I'm actually involved in an equity leadership collaborative through Chiefs of Change, which has been very informative. And we've recently joined one also through the Council for Great City Schools. Secondly, it is important to create a culture, understanding, and expectations with leaders first, and then engage all staff. And the reason why that's important is because your campus leaders, right, your district leaders, those team leaders are the ones that create safe spaces to have courageous conversations, do this very difficult work, and make sure that everyone can link arms. So we have to make sure that our leaders have the capacity to do that work. And then another best practice we'll talk about is really doing a broader equity assessment to make sure that we're engaging the voices of all. So we don't know everything, but we are working to figure it out and leaning into those experts and leaning into best practice and learning from our community. So based on what we know, what we've heard, and we've learned to date, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Andrade to talk about our first area of focus where we've taken action. Ms. Andrade.
Thank you, Ms. Gales. Okay, so the 21-22 school year was very busy and productive for the Teaching and Learning Division. In July of 21, we had the inaugural launch of the Teaching and Learning Framework, where Module 5 was dedicated solely to culturally responsive pedagogy and instruction. And I just want to pause here and tell you how extremely proud I am of the work of the Teaching and Learning Division, led by Tony Camp, the curriculum development, led by Karen Cardenas, and our professional development, led by Siobhan Wagner, Dr. Siobhan Wagner. And especially our curriculum and design teams that were led by our own talented PXU teachers. And as a result of all that hard work and collaboration, 90% of our certified staff completed and 97% of our administrators completed year 1 of the framework. In 21-22, we also launched our first culturally relevant coursework in English 7-8 in 3 different courses, one through the African American perspective, the Native American perspective, and the Mexican American Chicanx perspective. While approximately only 400 students participated that first year, we are excited that word has spread because enrollment in these courses has now more than tripled this year. Recently, we had 5 teachers, Roseanne Orta, Teresa Arvizu, Stephen Arenas, Eduardo Arce, and Marietta Morales, along with Lori Armitage, our ELA content specialist. They were selected to present at the National Council for Teachers of English in November, specifically around these culturally relevant courses in English 7-8. So I'm very excited about that as well. Meanwhile, curriculum teams were also hard at work under the guidance of Grant Skinner, our content specialist for social studies, leading and developing U.S. history from the African American, Native American, Mexican American, and Chicanx perspective. But we know this work matters, and it ultimately not only influences student engagement, but it ultimately influences achievement. In fact, as we were reviewing grade distributions this summer, we took a look at just traditional English 7-8, and I said, well, how many kids get A's in traditional 7-8? And about 35%, which is pretty typical. And when we looked at the English 7-8 through the African American perspective, for example, 53%, so you can flip that number, 53% received A's, just a tribute to what engagement and interest and relevance means to kids. Our annual HBCU engagement picked up some momentum in 21-22 with 6 staff from 4 different schools traveling to Washington, D.C. with the support of the Burton Family Foundation to attend a Dream Deferred HBCU workshops for a week of learning and resources to be able to come back and support our students and families. And we continue to have the annual BSU conference with approximately 80 students attending from across the district. And as we kick off 22-23, Foundations 2, the Teaching and Learning Framework was also successfully launched. And we're excited to monitor and continue to get feedback both from our teachers and our students around our U.S. history courses and see how they're going. And as we continue on this journey, you know, I believe Ms. Gale said, we know this work is really just beginning, at least in curriculum it is. And we know we have so much work ahead of us. But this year, we are definitely going to prioritize really getting in and supporting the teachers and implementing this newly developed curriculum with expertise from across the state. And finally, we're excited to partner with ASU on WeGrad, which is formerly the Dream Academy, with in-person and hybrid options specifically designed to support our Black parents. I'll change the slide now. Improving safety from bias, stereotypes, microaggressions, and disproportionality will take a multi-layered approach and time. We've made some progress in this area, but we still have quite a bit of work to do between student to student, staff to student, and then staff to staff progress. In 21-22, Module 3 of the Teaching and Learning Framework was dedicated to social and emotional learning and relationships. It covered what SEL is, how to determine ways to build individual SEL, and really to promote those reflective practices in the classroom that foster meaningful and authentic relationships with our students. And at the conclusion of the 21-22 school year, we hosted Friday professional development for our ESPs to come earn to learn. On 6-3, they engaged in cultural competence. On 6-10, restorative practices. On each one, there was about 400 staff from across the job families on each Friday attending. Also in the summer of 22, safety teams did a 3-day summit where teams gathered and engaged in learning again around restorative practices with students, crisis prevention and intervention techniques, and also building relationships. This year, we'll continue to support our CRPI, not only with our teachers, but with our leaders. So that they may be confident in leading the work as well. We continue to provide expertise to our teachers and continue to develop, enhance, and strengthen our ESP professional development opportunities. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Lopez to share more of the work in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Andrade. Yes, it is important to note that as a district, our initiative in regards to restorative conversations, restorative circles, mediation, support for our employees began several years ago. We remain committed to this important service for our employees, and we will continue to dig deeper on this work with a strong focus on our policies, our practices, our culture, and our climate. Through our Commitment 6 of our strategic plan, we launched our employee wellness program during the 2021 school year. This work is now a key component of our employee wellness team and aligns to our social and our emotional pillars. Dr. Erica Collins-Frazier and Ms. Kayleen Pashada are leading this important work. Ms. Jennifer Sunling serves as our wellness manager. She also works directly with our wellness ambassadors that are out on our campuses. That's important work that's taking place. And we have Ms. Dina Williams, who is our talent director, supporting the wellness team. Our focus for this school year is to expand these services and opportunities through better communication and promotion of our comprehensive wellness program. We are committed to being fully staffed and will provide the necessary resources and training to support our wellness team. In the focus area of increasing representation of Black staff to better support the needs of students and expand opportunities for staff, this work was done in collaboration with many individuals. Last year, Mr. Vieira, as the Executive Director for Leadership, and myself at the time as the Executive Director for Talent, worked very closely with the talent directors along with our leaders from our CTA, CEA, and ADA to make sure that we focus our work on some key components. And three of those components were really looking at standardizing our interview process, using a multi-stage interview and selection process, and creating a diverse interview panel. The focus areas for the standardization of our interview process were interview questions, ensuring that the questions were authentic and real, and they were aligned to the essential duties of each position for the interviews that took place. As far as the scoring rubrics were concerned, we made sure that the rubrics were not generic and used in every single interview, but very specific to the job that people were interviewing for. We looked at the scoring process, making sure that we calibrated those scoring sessions prior to any of the interviews to make sure that we worked out any differences or cleaned up any of the rubrics that needed to be adjusted. And we did that before we conducted any interview to make sure that our candidates had an equal opportunity for the positions they were applying for. As for the multi-stage interview and selection process, we ensured that candidates were given multiple opportunities to demonstrate their talents and their abilities beyond a single interview. There shouldn't be any process where one interview determines a person's abilities and talents, and so we made sure that we had that as a key focus for this work. In the multi-phase process, it included a skills assessment or simulation activity. I have to report that for all of our classified positions now, there is a skills assessment that takes place. For all the administrative positions, there's also a simulation, and in some cases, multiple steps that take place beyond that. We have done that work before with our certified for key positions, and we will continue to focus on that area for this school year. Again, it's important to note that our work is ongoing and in progress, and this focus will continue for this school year as we move forward. As for the diverse interview panels, I would say establishing these diverse and well-prepared interview panel members was by far one of the most important components that we worked on this last year. It also allowed for real genuine relationships to take place with panel members that participated with each other, ensuring that we were doing the right work and doing everything we could to make sure that we created a fair and equitable process when it came to the interviews and the multi-steps that we took. We had CEA, CTA, and ADA Association members were nominated by their leaders, along with our district leadership members that were in place for these panels. For the 22-23 school year, our focus will be on expanding our job postings, our advertising and recruitment efforts at universities with a diverse student body, which is a primary focus for us moving forward. We will accomplish this by expanding employee participation so that members beyond the talent team are participating in job fairs and also recruitment efforts. By visiting universities at the teacher prep level, not after students have graduated and are in their student teaching. We need to reach them before they get to the student teaching phase in order for us to have a direct influence in those future teachers and considering Phoenix Union as a place to come and work. By creating strong partnerships with universities, colleges, both in-state and out-of-state. Ms. Elvina Turman and Ms. Sherry Kaplan are supporting our student teachers, our interns, and serve as liaisons to our universities and partners. And I'm pleased to announce that we have 110 interns and student teachers that are placed with us this school year. That's a really good number, and we know that when it comes to recruitment, if we catch them early, that's when we get our most bang for our efforts and for the money that we invest. We also would like to put a plug for our Phoenix Educator Preparatory, which is going to launch this next school year, and hopefully in 4 years we'll see some of our own students come back to us in various capacities of educational positions that we have. We will promote and encourage diverse participation with PXU aspiring leader cadres, actively encourage, promote, and mentor employees to participate in cadres, but also do that in the informal way by developing those relationships and taking an interest in the people that we get to meet during the course of the work that we do. And we all have that ability to do so, and that will be a strong emphasis for all administrators and others to do that during this school year. We will focus on creating opportunities for leadership development within each employee group at all levels, understanding that leadership matters at all levels and that we need to have strong leadership coaches that are out there taking an interest in our employees and looking for those individuals that have opportunities for them or create those opportunities, encouraging them to engage and to actually apply. Because sometimes our own individuals may not think they're quite ready, but you just don't know what's going to happen unless you put yourself forward and actually apply for those positions. As far as focus on, and I apologize because I didn't, here, okay. As far as improving culturally informed and responsive communication, engagement, and leadership. Our executive director, again, Mr. John Biera, and our leadership coaches, Ms. Shakira Simmons, Dr. Holly Batzel, and Mr. Brian Reynoso, along with all administrators, took a strong lead in this particular area. During the 21-22 school year, we initiated the PXU Leadership Profile. And the key areas to date of what a leader is going to be we're going to be looking for in a leader includes the ability to shape vision of equity and success for all, the ability to develop leadership in others, the ability to create a culture of excellence, and the ability to have instruction as a primary focus of the work that they do. As was stated earlier, our district launched the Teaching and Learning Framework, Foundations 1. It was an exceptional work done, and everybody that participated got something out of it, so I commend the team that did that work. For 22-23 school year, we will complete the PXU Leadership Profile, using that as the standard for when we conduct our interviews for leaders that are selected for Phoenix Union. And we look forward to participating in the Teaching and Learning Framework Foundations 2, and are committed to continue this important work during the 22-23 school year. With that, I will turn the presentation back over to Ms. Gales.
So I'd just like to take a moment to talk about the last area of focus, which is engaging all staff, students, and parents to partner to confront bias and racism head-on through personal growth, required professional development, and intentional strategies. This past school year, what we did is we shared the report that really reflect the perspectives of our Black community. We shared that with all principals and all of our district leaders. And the reason that we began there was back to that best practice is you really want to build the capacity of your leaders to know how to do this work. And so in sharing that, we had robust discussion and asked them to think about what are the ways in which they can embed that information into their day-to-day work with their teams. We also launched the Teaching and Learning Framework, which embedded CRPI and SEL, so our social emotional learning, for all teachers and admin, and we'll be working on what it looks like to continue to embed that information for our ESPs. You've heard the Teaching and Learning Framework multiple times this evening, and it is not the catch-all, right, that cures everything, but what it is a foundation of understanding and expectations from which we can build for all of our staff, and that is extremely important, and we're excited about that. For this year, we intend to continue to share out the report, because we want to make sure that people own that work in their day-to-day work. We will be launching and completing a district-wide JEDI assessment. I'll talk about that in just a moment. We will have work teams, and we have had work teams on specific strategies. For instance, when I think about the teaching and learning framework and the curriculum writing teams that came together, we're very diverse. And then we are also working with a citywide JEDI collaborative where multiple school districts are coming together who are really linking arms around this work and sharing best practice and thinking about how we can really impact the entire Phoenix Union community from pre-K right through 12th grade. One of the things we've been talking about this year and really out of our leadership team and our teaching and learning team is collective efficacy. Collective efficacy refers to the shared belief that through collective action, educators can influence student outcomes and increase achievement for all students. The concept that stands out for me about collective efficacy is that's the notion that if a team believes that together they can make an impact and they use data and information and continuous improvement as tools, they can in fact make that impact. This is what we really need to depend on in doing this work around JEDI. We have to do both intentional strategies that are led from the district office, from district teams, but we also need individuals to come into contact with this information and say, how can I make a difference and how can I use this? And so the list of things that you see up here are examples where people within our district received this information out of our Black focus groups, and they took it upon themselves to figure out what to do with that information. So for instance, we had a study group launch, and that work was with Mr. Correa, looking at disproportionality, thinking about the whole child, disproportionality as it relates to discipline and academics, and how might that impact our Black males or our Black females differently. There's an annual ethics training, and that group there embedded key findings from this report. CEA provided an NEA workshop to some of their members around cultural competence. There was outreach done by our construction and facilities teams to different trades associations to really work on diversifying our vendors. And many schools actually had student workshops really focused on how they can best support their Black students. So let's now turn our attention to future engagement, which really is that request from everyone that we heard. Please take action and make sure that you're engaging everybody in the work. As mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we began this work by engaging with our Black community. As we work on solutions to improve their lived experiences with Phoenix Union, we will simultaneously offer all student, staff, and parents an opportunity to provide information on their lived experiences and a district-wide equity assessment. So whether you're Hispanic, Native, White, Asian, LGBTQ, the different spectrum of abilities, we will be offering an opportunity for people to really lean in and give their experience to see what we can learn and how we can also better serve them. The equity assessment has 5 goals, but we may expand on these as we learn more. Just quickly, as I mentioned, we want to hear everyone's voice so that we understand unique needs and can lean into those. We want to identify the glows and the grows, and we want to talk about policy, practice, culture, and climate. You have to look at all of those components. We look to build recommendations that are aligned to Phoenix Union specific needs. And the reason that's important is because DEI is just an acronym and a term that can be thrown around, and there's lots of common things that cut across all organizations, but every organization has its own context, and we want to make sure that we're responding to our priorities in a way that meets our culture and our climate. Through this assessment, we'll also strengthen the JEDI lens of our strategic plan and also inform the development of any staffing or work teams or advisory groups, but we want them to have specific focuses based on our assessment and our information. We will start with an equity assessment working team to help inform the development of that process, but also really to drive engagement. You saw our engagement numbers earlier in the slide, and we are very, very happy for the people that participated, but we want it more, and we want to make sure when we do this that is improved. One of the things that we heard loud and clear when we began this process is that we need you to keep talking and engaging us in the work and keeping us informed, and we need you to take action. And we are following through on those commitments that were asked of us from this group. And so we are having follow-up dialogue sessions. We worked on action over second semester since we shared the report, but the dialogue sessions are all about how can we move into action and how can those that are participating in those dialogue sessions inform our action. They're the third week of September. We're offering multiple options, 1 virtual and 3 in person, and everyone is invited to participate in that dialogue. We also know that we need partners in this work, so we're excited about whoever comes to our follow-up dialogue sessions, but we do look to continue our diverse work teams that we've talked about, we've already had, but those are going to evolve as the work evolves. We also know that we want to involve student groups, whether that be BSUs or STUGO. We want to continue to partner with Black Alliance. Our Meta Network is doing amazing work on campuses and have been really focused on supporting our students of color. We intend to do some intentional outreach and partnering through WeGrad, and I did mention the citywide JEDI collaborative that we're working with, but we also have an opportunity to work with local nonprofits and commissions. Our goal remains to welcome, love, and inspire all to go places and do things that matter. This brand promise drives us to serve all of our students and staff and families to the best of our ability. We thank our participants for being courageous enough to share their experiences and to be willing to work with us to create a stronger community together. And we thank the governing board for holding space to hear the voices of our Black community and lean into action to improve their lived experience in our community wherever we can make a difference. And with that, governing board, I turn it back over to you for discussion.
Thank you. Members, Mr. Prescott.
Thank you, Senator Alston. And thank you, Ms. Gales and Mr. Lopez and Ms. Andrade for the presentation. This was really thorough. I thought this was really great to get this much detail on the work that's been done, and we have been busy. And so thank you for everything you've been doing and for everybody else on the work they've been doing. Couple questions, points from my end. I do think this is really important work, and so I'm glad that we're moving ahead with it. One would be, you'd mentioned staff representation, that our staff representation is above student, but at the same time, one of the things that came up in the focus groups was staff representation. The thing that brought to mind for me was perhaps the staff representation varies from employee groups, so perhaps some employee groups have a higher number of African American staff and some employee groups have a smaller number. So I'd be really curious if there are particular job titles or employee groups that have increased or decreased representation compared to that average number, and how that might impact student representation or student perceptions of representation. I'd also ask if there was a need for dedicated staff or resources for JEDI work. I know the organization I work at, we do have a JEDI department. It's with a G for gender, but our JEDI department, they have, I think, 4 dedicated staff that work primarily on this. Obviously, it's a very different organization, but I'd be curious if there was a need for any sort of JEDI staff to work on this. And then 2 last thoughts. One is that Phoenix Union does have a large population of African refugee and immigrant students in particular, particularly Somali American and Congolese American, with additionally populations from Burundi and some other countries. I'd be really curious about their experience as part of this and drawing that out. And then last but not least is I think this is a really great process. It's very thorough. Of course, the African American community, particularly for this past few years, has shown the need for additional emphasis in this area. I'd also be curious if we have any plans to do similar work with other racial groups, such as Native American, Latino, Asian American, to help bring out those communities' feelings and bring attention to those needs as well. So those are my comments and questions.
Yeah, President Alston, and Michelle, I'd lean into those because we have very clear thoughts on many of those. Aside from like the first and the fourth one, like the report on change in demographics, we're happy to send that to you, digging deeper into some of our refugee students. But department versus people, what about Latino and Native, so Michelle can give you thoughts on those as well.
So yes, President Alston, Governing Board, thank you, Governing Board Member Prescott. I can definitely speak to a few of those things that you asked about. First, you talked about representation of Black staff, and a couple of things actually really surfaced. So we will definitely get the information so you can see more of that breakout. And there was absolutely an acknowledgement, but also it's great, right, that there's greater representation in terms of a statistic, but there was also a push-pull between, right, across all campuses, but also a request to see where you might have a higher population that's Black, you might have more representation there, and so how do we find that balance? So there was dialogue about that. There was also dialogue around across employee groups, and so definitely a lot of push-pull on that, but overall more representation so that you could find the balance between making sure that you had enough across every campus, right, and then also that where there was a higher concentration, you might want a little bit more. And then also that we don't get stuck on stats. Right, you hire quality, right, great people that serve our students, and so just don't get stuck on a statistic, that we still have an opportunity to grow from there. And then also an acknowledgement that there's places where we're underrepresented as well, and that we needed to think about those places as well. So great conversation, and we'll make sure we get that to you. The question around dedicated staff is another push-pull. And so philosophically as an executive team, like we're totally open and are really thinking about dedicated staff, because the truth is you want somebody thinking about this, right, every day, nonstop. The challenge is also that you also don't want to put it in a bucket, because the moment you put it in a bucket, it becomes a complaint box about wherever you place the bucket. And so let's say that we hire a diversity director and we put them in talent. 9 times out of 10, the majority of their work will become about talent, right? And so all the things around teaching and learning and student and family services, it's not that it won't be done, it just becomes a little bit more challenging. So we've been talking about this both and. How does every executive team member own this, right? How does every principal own this? How does every assistant principal own this, right? How do all of our quasi-leaders own this? And then if we have a position, what is their very specific function to make sure they complement that? So that's something that we plan to grapple with this year. And as we have more information about if staff or what staff should look like, we'll definitely come back to you with that. I would say that on the equity assessment is designed to have a similar process to get information from our other demographic groups so they can speak to their lived experiences. And so there's lots of different people that we can partner with that. We're going to look and see what we think will work best in our community, but it's our very intention for the equity assessment to be just that. And then finally, when you asked about our refugee populations, we did offer an opportunity. We asked whenever we had our focus groups if someone knew, right, of someone that maybe needed translation services or needed us to do some extra outreach around those groups to let us know. We unfortunately weren't able to get a lot of participation from that group, but would certainly look to partner to figure out ways to do that. And I think I hit most of those questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Those were great responses.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, wonderful, thank you.
No, Vice Mayor Hessen.
Who?
Vice Mayor and Ms. Board Member
I'm
Parra
waiting
are
for
fighting
Parra
over
to
first.
speak.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your hands up, I'm sorry.
We're over here trying to be nice and defer to each other. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for doing all the work on all of this. I think as we're having these conversations, for me, it's always important to center the focus of the conversations on what is quality education to this community and how do they define it and how ultimately what we want is to improve student outcomes, right? Like that's why we should all be here, is to improve outcomes and make sure that we're actually achieving our brand promise of our kids going places and doing things that matter. So as you're having the focus group conversations, just centering the questions around that, or asking parents. We're conducting, through my work, we're conducting focus groups with parents in Roosevelt District and learning a lot from families down there, and their families are our families, right? But learning a lot from them down there and how they define quality education for their kids. And so I think our community can be very informative and we can learn a lot from them. So for me, it's always about bringing these conversations back to like, how are we building policy, practices, cultures, and climates that is ultimately improving outcomes for student outcomes for our kids. So just that framing is really, really important to me. So yeah, just that's all.
Ms. Pastor?
Thank you. So let me start with, I really, really appreciate the work that has been done and had started. I have been asking for this for quite some time, and I have asked very specifically in last year, I think about 6 months, to add future agenda items, and one of the reasons was this purpose. And what I do want to say on an equity level is that in the safety plan, we had our consultants come and present to us. And with the consultants being here, we could ask very direct questions because they were the ones doing the work. And they were the ones hearing what was happening within the community. So what I'm asking is that the consultants come back and present to us so that we can ask those questions and really get the information of what was the statement within the community and what were they feeling, because they were the ones there. And that's what I was anticipating when I asked for the reports and that the consultants would come and present. So I appreciate that the staff provided a report, but I would like to just get that hands-on experience. One of the pieces that I didn't hear, which is very evident in the report, and it was very evident this evening earlier on in the public comment, was communication with us. And it's evident in the report of how this came about and the lack of communication to the community and really engaging the community. Because if the community, for me, if the community was engaged, I wouldn't have to be asking for this, because they're engaging me and they have engaged me the last 6 months to ask for this report. And that's why it's here today. So I'm going to lean in. We did this 2 years ago. I would like to know to today what the community knows and what we have done. And you don't have to answer that right now because I have 20 million questions and we'll be here all night. So I don't want to stay here all night because we all have another big item to go. I also want to know how many dialogue sessions we've had and what happened and who is facilitating them. And what specific metrics are we trying to change, or what are we trying to do so that we can do that? The NAACP and the Black Alliance is if they were satisfied with the work we were doing, we wouldn't be hearing. And I have been in dialogue with them for quite some time. And I specifically said, well, tonight's going to be a very long meeting, so I'm not sure if you want to sit this whole night to get to this particular part. I will be having a dialogue. I have been having it, but I'm going to have a sit-down dialogue with all of them to be able to understand what their struggles are with the district. And one of it, what they said, is communication. Safety is another issue of being bullied, the microaggression. I know we've worked on it, and I know that we had some of it up here, but that's happening today, and how do we quickly educate those that is happening to? Parents expressed education's concerns about it in two ways. And once again, communication is popping up. So I guess my question, and several questions, but it's a long night, is that we really need to do a better job at bringing our partners in that are within the community to help draft this and craft this. I appreciate this wellness piece, but I'm not really sure understanding the wellness piece. And I couldn't grasp it or get it, but I'll get it later. The other question is, how many African American interns are part of this cohort that we are recruiting or that are interning at this moment? Ethics training. When I think of ethics training, I think about what I have to do, or we all have to do in an ethics piece. Just what the law is, how to stay within the law. But I'm curious about the ethics training's embedded key findings. I'm not really sure what it entails with the ethics training. I understand all the other pieces. So I look at this as the safety plan as we're going to go and talk about it. I look at that's probably the process we have to do from here on out with anything. And I look at this piece as that process too. Bringing a community together, bringing a committee together, discuss the findings, be able to see what the findings are, then go from there, because I rather know what I have to solve. I work backwards, and any teacher that understands that, and especially in curriculum, you work backwards. What's the issue? Where do we want to get to? What's the metrics that we want to be able to demonstrate? And so I think the safety committee will teach us what we need to do in order to involve our families within our communities and also our students. I'm hoping that in the next time we meet on this, that a committee has been formed, that people have applied from the community to want to participate and be able then to do this great work. I look at it as great work that needs to be done, and I also look at it as part of all of us because we all represent our communities. And in that, I think all the other cultures will come together because it's all basically, I look at it, we all experience different things, but I experience isolation the same way that this report says they're experiencing isolation. I've been called many things, I experienced that, but if we come as a collective of once we build a framework, we will then have our diversity happening and our inclusion going on and build the equity. When it comes to hiring, I think that needs to be very specific when it comes to hiring and looking at the metrics of how we go about hiring. In that process, I think in hiring across the board, we have to have some experiences, and I don't want to limit it, but some experience in restorative justice, because if we have experience in that area or diversity and even ethics, then it makes us a stronger team. So those are my comments. You don't have to respond. I can get that later, or we respond at another time when we meet again on this. But I think we started, now we just need to climb. So thank you.
Anyone? Miss Ross?
Thank you, President. Thank you all. Thank you, team, for doing this report. I appreciate the hard work that you put into it. I'm just hoping to, I'm hoping one for a follow-up, and with that follow-up, I'm hoping to have like a little more in-depth information and detail and maybe substance in the report for the follow-up. And then I echo Ms. Pastor's statements of, I also was lost at the wellness piece. I didn't understand. It was actually a couple different reports that were put in there that I didn't understand how they fit in with with specifically this population. It was more like is wellness for employees, and it's kind of like, that's not what we were talking about. So I was also a little confused on that part. The wellness, and there was a second part that I can't remember. But if in a follow-up, please, I could get like more detail, more substance, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Marquez?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. The longer report that I believe is posted for the public is about 60 pages, and there's two consulting firms that I found that were referenced in there, Collective Equity and Diamond Strategies, and I guess my question is it feasible to do a study session dedicated to this topic before our outgoing board members depart the board? I know they've led on this work quite a bit during their time on the board, where those two consulting groups could come in and present these studies and really have a back and forth dialogue. And I guess, as I understand, the public could attend a study session as well if we advertised it, or we will advertise it, but making sure people know that they can attend that, so they can really have time dedicated to this one topic, where us as board members get a chance to really dive into these topics with the consultants that produced a lot of the information that was presented tonight. And then I guess to echo Board Member Prescott's point, and some comments that I've heard from the constituents in the community is really getting to a place where we're not just spending money on commissioning reports and studies, but we're putting our values into practice by having a paid staff focused on JEDI and having a department fully focused on JEDI. I think that's where we have to get to. If we can't just say we're going to produce a report and with the staff we have implement the best that we have. I think if we really value JEDI, we have to say this deserves a job for a certain number of people, to make that their only focus, to make sure everybody in the district is incorporating these principles into everything that we do as a district. Because I really believe if we don't, everybody's primary job functions, if you add a secondary duty to everybody else's job function that's JEDI, then it's nobody's number one priority. So I think you needed a department, or at least some dedicated staff focused on JEDI to really meet the needs of what the community is asking for right now. And I don't know if other board members would be interested in a study session solely focused on this, but that's what I would propose, and I don't know if we'd have to vote on that, or if that's something that, what's that? Yeah, so I'll just end it there as a brainstorm and kind of a ramble, but that's, after hearing Board Member Pastor and Board Member Prescott speak, I think that's what would really be important.
Mr. Prescott.
Excuse me. Yeah, just to clarify where I'm at. So and thank you, Board Member Marquez, for sharing on those points, and Board Member Pastor and Ross. I think with the funding for the positions for JEDI or our department, I do share the concern that Ms. Gales shared earlier, which is that I think a lot of big organizations create a diversity role, check the box, and they move on, and I don't want that to be us. So I ultimately I'd follow the recommendations that came from the report, the recommendations that came from the team on what to do there. But I do think you know, so I'm open to the idea of creating a specific department or a specific staff role to lead it. I do think, however, thinking about intentional funds for this would be very helpful. So we identified several things in here, like trainings and whatnot, that have funds attached to them. So being very clear about diversity funds that we could spend, or particular staff roles that are dedicated to that. So maybe a diversity trainer, so that diversity is still embedded throughout the organization, but we have specific people to carry out that work. So ultimately, we'll follow the team's lead on what they think is helpful, but that's just kind of where my head is at. I'd also be open to a study session on this.
Okay, thank you.
President Alston, members of the board, we'll take this back, obviously, as a team, and I just want to just revisit what Ms. Gale said around staff versus a person versus, you know, just funding. Exec team knows this. We talk all the time about what should this work look like, and right now we've taken a stance that DEI is everybody's job, and we should all eat, sleep, and breathe it every day. We also know that, almost to Board Member Marquez's point, if it's everybody's second or third duty, is it really anybody's first duty? So we find ourselves very conflicted, which is why we don't have it right now, because we all hold ourselves accountable to our own KPIs and diversity and what's that look like. But I can tell you, we find ourselves more and more talking about a department or a person, or even just a committee that holds us accountable. So we're happy to bring back some thoughts. But I also want to highlight that what Ms. Gale said is we do an equity assessment. We're hoping that assessment comes back very clearly saying, we think these are 2 or 3, 4 next steps. But certainly a position or a department or a real committee is top of mind for us. And as the team knows, we talk about constantly.
Thank you.
I don't want to surprise anybody with a motion, but I guess I'm asking the other board members or Dr. Gessen, do we need a motion for a study session, or?
It's not, this is not an action, but in the request for future items, you could put that request for future items.
Okay, thank you. The next item is 9I, approval of the memorandum of agreement for TOA Counselor Phoenix Educator Preparatory.
President, also members of the board, I'll be extremely fast and would even potentially suggest that you adopt I and J together. This is for our new Educator Preparatory Academy, job description and MOA for a counselor for the Ed Prep Academy. We recommend approval.
Senator Alston, I'd like to make a motion to approve both item 9I and 9J together.
Second.
A motion has been made by Board Member Prescott, seconded by Board Member Ross, to combine and approve items number 9I and 9J. Is there any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. The next items we did already, so we can skip over those. The next item is 10 of the intergovernmental agreement with the Maricopa County Community College District for dual enrollment for the 2022-23 school year. Dr. Keston.
President Alston, members of the board, we actually would like to request that we table this for this particular item for future consideration, and our team will work on this and bring this back in the future.
Okay. Then we'll just skip right over those. The next item is 13C, discussion and consideration of the Arizona School Boards Association Draft 2023 Political Agenda. Dr. Keston.
President Alston, I think we either you jumped over a page or two, or that's okay. So that's okay. We should be on 12A.
so sorry.
That's okay.
I turned a bunch of pages. Well, I was getting us out of here. Thank you.
Nice try.
Okay, thank you.
That one
So
right there.
sorry. 12A, discussion of school
as I
safety.
can.
Oh, well, that was a big one.
Yeah.
Discussion of school safety, health, and wellness, including the Phoenix Next Gen Safety and Security Plan with potential action. Okay, Dr. Gesson.
All right. President Alston and members of the board, we will bring this item back to the board for the next several months per previous board motion to discuss safety. As you see, we've titled this discussion of school safety, health and wellness, including next gen safety and security plan with potential action. Very likely will be the title moving forward for the next several months. Tonight, want to give a few updates. One, just want to remind the broader community that we do have an email address, safety@phoenixunion.org. This is for staff, students, and families. Anytime anyone in the Phoenix Union community wants to submit input to us, we read every single email. I'm not going to read these today, but just want to rest assured and assure the community that we read every piece of feedback that comes in to Phoenix Union and consider those and make changes accordingly. Next, last month, governing board made several motions that were approved, and one of the board actions is that we are to report law enforcement expenditures and usage on a monthly basis. Just a quick overview of what this chart is telling us. We have had 18, there were 18 school days in the month, I believe it's 18 school days in the month of August. Over the month of August, we averaged, if you go to that middle category, we averaged 2.7 officers per day that we use to assist with our mandatory reporting, law enforcement notifications. That means that there were 78 officers. That doesn't mean that there are 78 different officers, but we averaged 2.7 per day. There were some days you get what that number means, so 48 total officers. Some officers we use consistently and some were one time. We spent $26,976 in the month of August and had no evening event officers or therefore no evening event expenditures. And then we will share a similar report with the board next month. As you know, what the board approved was up to $350,000 for the semester, which is $55,000 per month. So this is well under that total for the month. Partially because there were times we needed extra support and couldn't get it from the city because of their staffing shortages. Also, we heard tonight at the podium, and we know was an important part of last month's motion is the Student Safety Committee. So I want to provide an update on the Student Safety Committee. The governing board Student Safety Committee was part of last month's action. It was very specific on what we as an executive team were asked to do. And that first was to put together the Student Safety Committee. And as a part of that board action, based on the feedback from the board, we set two goals as we worked with you all and the broader community on the makeup of this team. And you see those two goals very clearly, that the committee was demographically representative of Phoenix Union and regionally representative, making sure that we had at least fair representation in South, in West, and in North Central. A reminder to board and broader public that the selection process and appointees, as you see up on the board, first, that the board was given the option to appoint 7 members, and you'll see that here on the next page specifically. Association, the motion said that at least one student, at least one parent, at least one community organization, and at least one staff member of each classification. We met with employee associations, told them that, read them the board motion, at least one. We suggested one, at most 2. And we trust associations, and so they were in charge of their own process of how they would select. They each selected 2. You'll see that on the next page. Governing board also said that we should select at least one community organization, such as Poder in Action. We also then considered which community organizations have been most outspoken about school safety issues. and in our best judgment, put Air in Action and Black Mothers Forum were given an opportunity to select a candidate. And then finally, student and parent selection. Again, the governing board motion was at least one student and at least one parent. We thought that one was probably not enough, and so we selected one from each region. And what we did to try to do our best to get the word out to the broader community, one, with students, we were able to communicate with students. One way that's our most effective is that when we send a message out to our students through Teams, we know that it gets to 100% of our students. And so our first major outreach was through Teams, which we did to our students. We also, for both students and parents, did our typical social media on our multiple platforms. Many of our campuses did their best to do announcements. We also, for parents, and I think we heard some parents today say that they didn't hear. We heard some parents say they did hear. I can tell you what we did do is that we went, not just the social media and our typical platforms, but we went through Synergy and did text messaging and emails and the communication to try to get it out to parents and students. In that communication, we tried to drive students and parents to a link so that they could submit their interest. On that was just simple information, who they are, what school, what area, and then just a simple, why would you like to be involved in the safety committee? As a part of that communication, we gave an idea into the commitment. This isn't just a one and done, it's a big, broad commitment. And we had over 200 people submit that they want to serve on this committee, about 100 students and about 100 parents. Yeah, I thought it was, especially when we were clear about the time commitment. So then the next step with students and parents is we organized that list by campus, sent it back to principals and said, here's your list of people that said that they might be interested. Are there people that you know that have been really outspoken about their safety and their concern for the campus, regardless of what they think safety is? Do they want police, not want police? Do they, and had the principals identified people that we thought were really passionate about school safety. And then we used their final recommendations to put together this committee based on demographics and region. I want to quickly jump to what about the people that didn't get selected, and then I want to talk about the committee. So we know that, and you heard from the community tonight, that they may not have been selected for this committee. The reality is we have 4,000 employees and 30,000 students and 50,000 parents, and the motion was at least one. So very few people are going to serve on the committee. It's really about the feedback from the community that the committee listens to. And so we think these 200 will play a really key role. They wanted to serve in the committee, but they weren't selected because we don't have enough room. And so a direct communication was actually already sent to these 200 to say, hey, you weren't appointed, but please stay engaged. And here's how we'd like you to stay engaged. We encourage you to be a part of your campus safety teams and discussions. I'll talk about that in a second. And you will be on the invite list and the engagement list for anything that the board safety committee does. Because if you're that passionate about serving on the committee, then maybe you'll be willing to come to forums and fill out surveys and engage and do focus groups. So we will very intentionally, the committee, of course, will drive their engagement, but very intentionally target these 200 students and families to engage. And then we will also work with principals directly to make sure that they've had their own indirect, their direct communication with the people not selected. We did a district-wide one. We want to make sure that they feel really welcomed and connected by their principal as well. That's a glimpse into what we're doing with the 200 who submitted that aren't responded. And then very specifically in terms of the board student safety committee, these ultimately are the 21 individuals that were selected. And what we thought ultimately turned out to be very fantastic. If you think about the overall demographics of Phoenix Union, and when you think about the race ethnicity demographics, that would tell you that you should have a committee that's majority Latino. And this is by far majority Latino. That based on the demographics of Phoenix Union, it should be somewhere between 10 to 15% African American. It is. That there should be, between 5 to 10% white. It is. That we should have equal representation in South and West, and the North Central. it's equally balanced. It should be equally balanced between people that identify as female and as male. It's almost equally balanced. And then based on relationships within this, that it will at least have 1 to 2 individuals who identify within the LGBTQ community. And so when you think about the representation of Phoenix, it's almost perfect representation. And I am hopeful, based on some of the feedback that we've gotten from the board, from the community, from input, that it'll also feel very balanced from a perspective of the role of law enforcement and school safety. And so we bring to you this slate today, confident that it mirrors the demographics that our team did. And I want to thank Thea and Claudio and Alyssa, Nisela, and everybody involved trying to put together a really complex committee that's very representative. And in addition, our team also has some alternates. So if we ultimately find out that this group, any one of these ones comes forward and says, hey, I can't make that commitment, we have alternates based on to try to keep this demographically representative of our broader community. I think it's also important to note what's next for this particular committee. And we'll ask the board to I think it'd be important for you to accept this as action tonight, the actual committee. You don't have to, but we would recommend that you do. After tonight, there's a next step. Right now, tentatively, we've scheduled the first meeting for Saturday, September 10th. That's been communicated to these individuals as best as possible, especially those who filled out the link. These dates were on there. And the first step, I've had a chance to meet with many of you, a few of you on the board, and even I had a chance to meet with Vice Mayor for about an hour and a half and really think about what does this look like from the city perspective. And first step is onboarding of this new committee. I won't go through all of those. You see all the information this committee has to be equipped with to really start to grapple with the right decisions. So you see that list up there. The goal, it's a lot. A lot of it can be done as pre-reading. A lot of it's going to be, but in order for this committee to really think about next steps, there's a lot that needs to happen first or second meeting, including selection of co-chairs, an alternate, future meeting dates. What do they want? What's the committee want community engagement to look like? Because ultimately, the motion isn't that exec team drives the engagement. It's that the committee really thinks about what's community engagement look like and how can they be best informed. And so there's a lot of pre-work that has to be done with this committee, and our team's prepared to do that. In addition, based on my conversations with you all and best practice and models with these types of ad hoc committees, that at each meeting there will be a facilitator to facilitate the discussion, an interpreter, a note taker. You all asked that GCI be engaged in this work, so GCI is committed to being at these meetings. That a safety team or team members from Phoenix Union, because the committee might have questions of like, hey, how do you guys handle this issue in Phoenix Union? So we're committed to having a safety member at each meeting. There'll be an attorney at every meeting. I'll talk about that in a second. You'll have tech staff at every meeting and other personnel as needed, requested, and available. So you may ask for a principal's perspective. They may ask for whatever might be requested from the committee. So we're prepared to provide all of those. And the bottom, that'll lead me to the attorney. These meetings will be open to the public. They're open to open meeting law. They're live streamed, and at least the first meeting will start here. And we'll work with the committee to decide what location looks like long term. I do think it is important to note that this, because it's a governing board committee, that this committee is fully subject to open meeting law in every way, shape, or form. So in every way that you are subject, they are as well, and so they will have to be trained, and that's why an attorney will be there, just to protect you. It's your committee, them, us as a district, so an attorney will be assigned, not to influence or guide the discussion, to be there to keep everyone safe, as Lynn and Eileen do in our meetings. And then my last slide as a follow-up, and then obviously I'll turn it back over to you all. There were other actions that the governing board took. Second, the third action of the night was around community engagement. What Phoenix Union did to try to go fast is we released an RFQ that asked out to the community for assistance with engagement and facilitation in one RFQ. And our team is looking through the individuals or the companies that have submitted. Feel really good about what that will look like for Phoenix Union. We are hopeful to have that done today. It could be tomorrow or Tuesday. Phoenix Union has to follow procurement laws, and procurement is not fast or easy. And so we will, as soon as we have identified a partner, we will notify the board and the public what and who that individual or company is. And the last two things to bring to you is you also made a motion that we are to work on a student and family advocate, similar to a victim advocate. Our team, thank you to Thea and Alyssa Tarkington and many others, they actually have already worked on and looked at local and national models, have already on version 2, draft 2 of a job description. Feel really good about the direction. We'll soon share that with you, and then you all will have to take action on that job description eventually, hopefully in October. And finally, the governing board asked us to work on internal protocols and the 360 review process, and how do we know when do we call law enforcement, when do we not call law enforcement. We talked about that 360 review, and our team has already started the process for that. And with that, governing board, I'll turn it back over to you for any thoughts, comments, questions, or action.
Okay. Mr. Prescott.
Dr. Geston, just to clarify, do you need action? Oh, your mic. Oh. Thank you for the reminder. Dr. Geston, just to clarify, do you need action from the board to approve any of this?
Yeah, President Alston, Clerk Prescott, in conversations and preparation for today, Lynn, I believe you believe it's in the best interest that they at least formally accept the committee. Fair? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to offer a motion for that. I'll open it up for discussion from any colleagues before that, but yeah, I'd be happy to offer a motion when the time comes.
I think protocol-wise, Ms. Adams, seems to me it would be wise to have the motion made and seconded and then go to discussion as our normal practice.
Exactly.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the committee as presented, as well as the guidelines listed here.
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Prescott and seconded by Ms. Ross to accept the presentation or the committee as presented, and we will have further discussion. Is that close enough, Lynn? Okay. A motion has been made. Okay, now we're ready for discussion. Ms. Pastor.
I just want to clarify the motion. It's to accept the committee.
My motion, and just to clarify, is to accept the committee members, the 21 members listed here, and the general process that's been outlined in the following slides, the onboarding, the notes about meeting staff that'll be there, and the rest of that. Now, some of these things, you know, the community engagement, we're not approving that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that was my approval. Is specifically the members
And the process.
and the general process, including the onboarding.
For the people that, yeah, okay, got it. I have some questions.
Certainly.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. On the next steps, on September 10th, I'm reading previous Phoenix Union IGAs with the City of Phoenix. Are those the 3 IGAs that you guys had spoken about earlier?
No, President Alston, Vice Mayor Pastor, no, the previous IGAs that we had in place with the city, the previous SRO IGAs. Again, this committee is not going to approve SROs, but to look at what IGAs between Phoenix Union and the city, for them just to review what those looked like in the past.
And I didn't hear what you said about SROs before you said the second part.
Yeah, so Phoenix Union in the past had IGAs with the city for SROs. That's not what this committee is asked to do, but because this committee is asked to work on an IGA with the city, we thought that they should at least have access to previous IGAs so they know what that format looks like, what goes into it. But no, these are not new IGAs, these are old IGAs, just for information.
Okay, because the motion was very specific that the IGA would be with rules of engagement. And I understand that you're going to demonstrate and show the IGAs that we had with the City of Phoenix, but it's very specific, that motion, on what IGA to be working on.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to get cleared. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think verbally I said that very well, Vice Mayor. So
Well-
President Alston, so we wanted, about halfway down that list is let them see the previous
Okay.
IGA so they know what it looks like. But if you go back to that first bullet point, one of the things that this committee will have to be very clear on, what are the objectives, what are the timelines, and what are the pre-discussions about rules of engagement IGA with the city. So that's a part of the
And then
onboarding.
the Charlottesville IGA, what's that about?
That's part of the President Alston, members of the board, part of the GCI report pointed out that one of the best models of rules of engagement IGAs in their
Okay.
finding in the city was in Charlottesville. So we thought, we're just trying to equip them with all the knowledge they might need to make wise decisions, and that's the Charlottesville IGA.
Okay, so it's Charlottesville
Is a part
Rules of Engagement IGA.
That.
Okay.
And I'll just add,
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Prescott.
yeah, I was just going to say, Councilwoman Pastor, I've read through the Charlottesville IGA. I can forward that over to you if you don't have it. But it is a rules of engagement IGA. I think it's just there as a model policy. Frankly, there are some things in the Charlottesville IGA I wouldn't want at Phoenix Union, but there are some lines there that I think could be very helpful.
Okay. I still have more questions.
But Madam President, just real quickly, just to
Laura.
Councilwoman Pastor, are you Vice Mayor still?
Yes.
Okay, Vice Mayor's point. I mean, this committee is open to looking at other stuff, even though it's not listed. They're not just bound by this.
Right.
They have the opportunity to say, hey, if there's something else we'd like to look at and have a discussion, they're free to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, President Alston, members of the board, what we want to do is we want to make sure they have access to all the information that they could ever want. But of course, they can go research
Yeah.
anything they want, listen to community feedback.
Yeah.
We just want you.
That's important, yeah. Very good. Go ahead.
Can I jump in? Ask a question? Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just clarifying question. Last month when we voted on this, I was out of town and had some technical difficulties, but I guess to clarify, Councilwoman Pastor, your point, the scope of what they can come back with to work on is rules of engagement. That's the overarching scope. So they couldn't come back with, hey, we actually want something beyond rules of engagement that is another IGA for SROs. Is that what we voted on last month?
Yes.
Ms. Pastor?
Yes, it was very specific about rules of engagement. And anything that then comes out of that committee that they want to explore or write about, then it's actually coming out of that committee. It's not being written by staff here. It's actually something that they want to see in a plan for the future. At least that's what.
Mr. Prescott?
Just to share the exact language used last time, and I have the language used, to review and develop proposals from today, including law enforcement roles, administrative protocols for mandatory reporting, and IGA with the City of Phoenix Police Department to address rules of engagement, and for those proposals to be presented to the governing board.
Yeah, President, also members of the board.
Yes,
Part of that original onboarding is to actually read that language to them, pack what that board motion is, what are you asked to do, what are you not asked to do, what can you do, what can't you do. So that's part of this onboarding process.
Can I ask for an amendment to your motion?
Mr. Marquez?
Yes, Madam President. Can I ask Board Member Prescott to make an amendment to his motion?
You can, what's the amendment?
I
Yeah.
can't hear you.
He'd like to make an amendment to my motion.
Well, let's all hear it. Let Mr. Prescott hear it.
No, I would just, your motion was to accept the presentation as presented. I think after this back and forth, I would add that we'd add the language from last month as sort of the mission statement of the committee, and then these bullet points here are the sort of starting documents to work towards that mission statement. So I just include last month's motion as sort of the driving mission for the committee based on what we voted on last month.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Olson. Sorry, I'll use the mic. I think that's already included. I'm happy to make that explicit if you and other board members feel that it needs to be explicit, but I think that's already included. Again, list objectives and timelines, and I know in my talks with Senator Olson and Superintendent Gesson, it's been very clear that that's the scope of the committee. So, but yeah, Board Member Ross, would you be fine adding that to our motion? Yes. Then yes, we will So I will amend the motion to clarify that we are with the scope of the original motion.
That we are what?
That the committee will be guided by the scope of the original motion that was made last month.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Pastor.
I just want to know who will be facilitating. Who?
He's the
Is that, okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm happy here.
That's okay.
Checking my
It's
tomato
late,
soup.
and we, all myself included, probably said too much tonight, talked too long. We believe in the next 1 to 2 business days, we'll have that to you all.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, that's all. That's it. Want me to make up another one?
Ms. Adams, do we need to re-vote on the amended motion?
We never voted on
We never voted, yeah, so we
Oh,
can,
okay.
the motion, yeah, the motion was amended before the vote, so now you're voting on the motion as amended
As
to make it
amended.
clear that the objectives are the same as the motion from last meeting.
Okay, got it? Are there any questions of the members of the board?
All those in
Dr.
favor?
Gesson, any further comments? Okay. On the motion, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. Yay. Thank you all very much. Now let me see if I can get on the right page
Ms.
here.
Adams, do we need was that just the vote for the amendment, or was that the vote for the?
No, that was the.
That was the vote for the amended motion because you approved you approved it, and the seconder approved it, so we are fine. We did not need to vote on the amendment itself. We're good.
We were voting on the motion.
And I'm
as
just going to
amended.
stay up here now because I'm next.
Right?
Thank you.
Not for any other reason.
Is that right?
I am next.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to go back 1 page.
Oh, I'm ready to skip over something else.
Right there, very bottom, just that.
Ah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item is 12B, discussion of Phoenix Union's governing board minimum voting age. Dr. Gaston.
All right, President Alston, board, I'm going to Lynn Adams at the last board meeting. Board Member Marquez, in the request for future items, asked us to look into 16 and 17-year-olds potentially voting on board elections, specifically what's happening in Oakland. We asked Council, Lynn Adams, to do some research, and so she's going to give you a little bit of research, and if it provides any helpful information tonight. I happen to know well the superintendent of Oakland, and so she and I spoke recently about this topic, but I think more importantly, Lynn Adams to provide the legal.
This was super apparent earlier in the evening, so just bear with me now that it's late. So I did this is preliminary, obviously. I didn't do a huge deep dive until I get more direction from you, but at least kind of give you a preliminary lay of the land where things stand. So the good news, there's really, at least from my perspective, I was concerned that this might be a constitutional issue, that we might need a constitutional amendment. It is not, it's not something that would require an amendment of the Constitution. There's an Constitution generally sets the voter age at 18 or above, except there's an exception for school elections, and that says that qualifications for voters at school elections provided by so it's separate from general elections. So that's from my perspective, a really good thing. The difference here, though, is as provided by law, meaning state law. So unlike Oakland and San Francisco, the California Constitution makes the school board election a matter of municipal law. And so for both San Francisco and Oakland, it was basically just a citywide election that made the voter age a lower age for those elections. In Arizona, it's state law. The state law is, right now, it's 15-401. It says anybody who's qualified to vote under ARS 16-121 is qualified to vote in a school election. And then 16-121 sets the age at 15 years of age or older. In order to make this change, I'll the chase here. I know this is kind of wonky, but it was really kind of a fun little exercise. Is right now you need to change state law. You need to amend ARS 15-401 to have something different than a reference to general voter election age. You could do that. You could do that. It's much better than amending the Constitution. But just kind of keep in mind here, again, this would be a statewide legal change. So you'd need to think about what that would mean, whether you need to get buy-in from other districts across the state on whether or not they're going to support this legislative change. You need to think about how, if not, how you might craft a statute that would pass constitutional muster. Think about whether it would apply, for example, to districts that have a certain percentage of a population or a certain number of population of students who are 16 and 17 years old. Maybe it's for a certain geographic location. There are things that you would have to think about how could this statute be crafted, assuming you couldn't get statewide buy-in to have it apply across the state. So, just like there are other statutes that apply differently for different school boards, this is maybe something that you would want to think about. Obviously, kind of next steps would be, if you wanted to move forward, we'd need to do a deeper dive from a legal perspective just to confirm my preliminary analysis before we get deep into it. We'd want to have you work with a lobbyist. The other thing just to keep in mind too is that this might change at some point your need for redistricting, right? Because at some point now, you may have a heavier percentage. Your maps may, next time around, your maps may not be balanced because you may have a higher percentage of 16 and 17-year-olds who can vote in those elections in one ward than you do in another. So there are a lot of implications. Again, I think the takeaway is not a constitutional amendment, but it's also not like California, because it is not a municipal, just a change in a municipal law. It's a change in a statewide law. So you really need to kind of dig down into how you wanted to move forward. Mr. Prescott?
Mr. Prescott?
Ms. Adams, just to be very clear, what you're saying is right now we do not have the authority to switch the voting age, and it would require a change in state law through the normal legislative process.
That's exactly correct. Sorry, I didn't make that more clear. I know. No, you cannot do it now.
Madam Chair. Lynn, it's a simple majority vote. It doesn't, because it is just state law, right? It would only require a simple majority in the legislature.
Yes, yes. And like I said, for me, that was a good thing, again, because of the heavy lift, if it were a constitutional change, which was I was worried about right from the beginning, but it's not.
Mr. Galar. Anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment. Lynn, do you have I guess, initial hunch of how you might craft something like this? I think you presented the option of statewide, just blanket saying for all school board elections across the state, 16 years old, versus crafting something that is more specific, instead of referring to 16-121 that sets it at 18. Is there something that is said, well, for school board races of certain jurisdiction sizes, you mentioned as a possibility, but the other idea was just leaving it to the local jurisdiction?
There's probably a number of ways that you could craft this. And it's really a change to 15401, because 15401 references back to 16121, which sets kind of the general age, so it would be a change to 15401. And I think there are a number of permutations. I mean, you could make it for all school elections. Do you want it for, bond and override elections? Do you want it only for board elections? There are a number of permutations. You would just have to think about probably, again, not just getting legislative buy-in, because you're going to have to get a legislative buy-in and governor's buy-in, but the buy-in from other school districts who are going to be impacted too. So I think there's there's more political here than there is legal work in terms of how you might move forward.
And you said the carve-out, the exception specifically for school board races that then refers to this law.
Mm-hmm.
So just to understand correctly, so for any other elected office in Arizona, whether that's city council or county supervisor, they're stuck at 18 as a constitutional requirement no matter what?
The constitutional requirement is for general elections. I don't know about what the city might require. I'd have to go back and look at that. I'm just not quite sure. But because you're a political subdivision, you're set by state law. And that ties back to the Constitution, because the Constitution says for school elections, it's as established by law, so it's as established by state law.
And I guess last question, do you have any sense of how other states came to the determination that local jurisdictions could decide these types of things to govern their own elections?
Because I think it's in the Constitution, at least in the California, from what I understand, in the California Constitution in particular, that it makes school board elections a matter of municipal law. And so that's the difference between our Constitution and their law. So that's why you have places like San Francisco and Oakland being able to set their own law and their own voter age.
Sure.
So I think it's basically just a difference between our constitutional structure and theirs, in California's.
Okay, thank you.
So it doesn't mean it's not possible, it just means you can't do it now, and that there's, again, I think there's more political hurdles that as a board you would need to consider before moving forward. And maybe not hurdles, but just political issues that you need to talk about and think about.
Right.
Just to clarify, because you said it's not impossible, it's not something we can do now. Just to clarify, we can't do it because we're not at the state legislature. So.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, there's nothing you could,
Okay.
right. You could request, you could work with a lobbyist, but at the end of the day, the decision would be by the state legislature and the governor, both hand in hand, and in any way that it might be crafted.
Mr. Prescott?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is a potential way forward. Board Member Marquez, I know this is an issue that you requested to be on the agenda. It's something you're passionate about. I think the ways to move forward, one would be a resolution that we could adopt as a board, and we can consider it. We can talk about what the language looks like, or direction to our lobbyist. And I don't think we're noticed for action tonight on this, but I think those are two potential ways we could move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Can I respond to Board Member Prescott? Yeah.
What?
I just wanted to thank Board Member Prescott for your comments, and Dr. Gessen for including this as an agenda item so quickly. I wasn't expecting to see it so quickly at this board meeting. I like your idea of a resolution. It seems like that is the legally safe thing to do, to express support for a change in state policy. I guess the last question for Lynn is do you have any sense of the other states and local jurisdictions? Is there any examples of a local jurisdiction challenging statewide authority through court by saying we want to instead of going through the legislative process, they've challenged something through court or tried to implement something to force
in this particular instance, to reduce the voting age for, or just generally
I'm just
speaking?
thinking to have more local autonomy over how local elections are ran, not specific to lowering the voting age.
I'm just not aware. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I'm sure there are instances, but I just can't think of them off the top of my head. So
Okay,
I
thanks.
don't want to misspeak.
Well,
Ms. Pastor, do you have a comment?
No.
thank you.
Okay. The next item is 13C, discussion and consideration of the Arizona School Boards Association Draft 2023 Political Agenda. Dr. Gustin.
All right, President Alston and members of the board, we're almost done unless you want to spend an hour fighting over ASBA again, like we have done in the past. So tonight, item 12C and 12D are related. So every year, ASBA holds their annual meeting in September where they adopt their political agenda and school boards can select a delegate to go. So 12C is discussion and consideration of you adopting their political agenda for the year. If you are on your iPad, you can go to 12C. You'll find their political agenda. Based on our read, things seem very values aligned. Board Clerk Prescott and I had a conversation. There was one caveat potentially the board might want around DSEG, but item 12C is discussion and consideration of this agenda, and then 12D is if you want to select a delegate to actually go and engage in the ASBA meeting in September. So with that, I'll turn it back to the board if anyone has any thoughts or wants to make a motion to adopt or not adopt the political agenda.
Madam President.
Well, I had a question.
What are the, Dr. G, what are the red lines through here? Are we saying we don't agree with this part?
Those are the edits from ASBA. So it's the edits to
they're
their.
not our edits, it's their
No,
edits.
no.
Okay.
ASBA. They have the previous text was last year's political agenda. They have a political subcommittee that makes recommendations. So the red are this year's recommendations from the political subcommittee to the political agenda. The agenda will then be given to their lobbyist to direct their lobbyist during the incoming session.
I had a question, President Alston. On the comment to DSEG, Dr. Gesson, would it be that at the delegate assembly, we, our designated member there proposes that they add protection of DSEG funding? Okay.
Yeah, President Alston, members of the board, you'll notice on item 8, it says return DSEG funding to the primary tax levy. And actually, Clerk Prescott had an idea that it was preserve DSEG and move it to the primary. So that it has to be very clear that they're fighting to protect DSEG. And if they want to move it back to the primary tax levy, that's fine, but protecting it's the most important part.
Mr. Gallardo.
Thank you, Madam President. I mean, I'm no big fan of the Arizona School Board Association. Even there, when I was there, oftentimes I was on opposing sides, and it wasn't so much the agenda. It's all the other wheel and deals that go on as the legislative process moves forward. They support the executive budget, and we don't because of, it could be vouchers, can be anything. But nonetheless, I think it's important, though, that we do have representation there. I think it's important for us to at least be there and give Phoenix Union's a point of view. Let it be DSEG, let it be whatever particular issue going forward. So less concerned about their agenda. It's more as the legislative process moves forward. That's always concerning. But nonetheless, I would suggest that it is important for us to at least have a delegate there, someone who will speak on behalf of Phoenix Union. That would be my preference.
So who's the delegate?
No, so,
This one.
yeah, that's the next item. Item 12D, you can recommend or a delegate, so that's item 12D. This is if you want to accept it, not accept it. I don't think they have to, I don't think you have to take any action on this item. You don't have to. You can. Whether you send a delegate or not, you can decide if you want to take action.
So, Madam President, so, Dr. G, so we can, skip 12C and still move forward with the delegate, not support the legislative agenda?
Yeah, President Alston, Clerk Prescott, you want to jump in?
Yeah, my understanding is that 12C, we'd be directing our board nominee, which is the next item, on our board's position on the overall agenda. So if our board's overall position is we support the overall agenda, but we want to be more clear about DSEG, we can make a motion here, and then in the next item we can motion who gets to go say that in a couple of weekends.
And Mr. Chair, and well, I'll just go ahead and throw it out there since we are entertaining both items. I would, Madam President, make a motion that we, she's going to shoot me, but I would make the motion to nominate Stephanie Para, Board Member Para, to be our delegate to.
We're not doing
But aren't we doing both items?
He wants to combine them.
We can combine them.
He's trying to get home.
Let's go ahead and combine them. All right. I make the, okay. You're going to earn your money now. You're earning your money today. So do I make a motion to combine them first and then, or I just?
No, you can just combine them. So you can just
Okay.
move to, that you're going to approve item 12C with the addition of an extra emphasis on DSEG, preservation of DSEG funding, and for item 12D, move to appoint Board Member Para.
All right, there you go. Madam President, if it's okay with you, I would go ahead and make that motion that we combine item 12C and 12D with the emphasis on protecting our DSEC funding, and I also make the motion that the Board Member Para be our delegate to the Arizona School Board Association.
I second.
A motion has been, hold on. A motion has been made by Mr. Gallardo, seconded by Ms. Pastor. Is there any discussion, Mr. Prescott?
Unless Mr. Prescott wants to do it.
Two things. First off, Stephanie, do you want to do this, or are you being voluntold?
Only because I know the dogfight at the Capitol, and I'm used to it. So yeah, I'll be happy to represent Phoenix.
Awesome. Cool. If Stephanie's in support, I'm in full support of Stephanie. I just want to say generally on these two items, again, this is my last year on the board, and one of the things I've been thinking about is just how do we make sure that the future board is stable. At ASBA, we have our issues with ASBA. We all know what those issues are. I think they've made some changes in some areas. Some of them, they have not changed. So there's been some improvement. There's still some issues. That said, I think to Board Member Gallardo's point, I think it's a net positive for our district to engage with ASBA. I think it's a net positive for incoming board members to engage with ASBA. And so I would just, my reflection as I'm finishing up my term is that I think for the past few years, we've decided not to engage with ASBA. I think that as a board and as a district, we should increase that engagement. I think this is part of that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed indicate by saying nay. The motion carries. The next item is 12E, adoption of revised governing board policies IHA, Basic Instructional Program, IJJ, textbook supplementary materials selection and adoption on second reading. Is there a motion to adopt the revised governing board policies, and is there a second?
I adopt 12E.
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Pastor, seconded by Mr. Prescott. Is there any discussion on the motion? Those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. The next item is 13F, approval of revised governing board policy BEDB agenda on second reading. Dr. Geston.
Excellent. A couple of things, President, also members of the board. First of all, our problem on your script, we apologize. This is a first reading, so what's on the screen is right, what's on the board agenda right, what's on your script is not right, so we apologize. It's 12F first reading. And then I just want to point out that this was a request of a couple board members to bring this back. A couple things that I want to note. One, for the public to know, but for the board, a couple things that have changed. One, significant item is that we put in land acknowledgement statement into the board agenda. We're not ready for that yet, but we want to build that in so that as soon as we're ready for land acknowledgement, we don't have to come back and re-revise this again. We're hoping to bring that to you in the next couple of months where we can start to do formal land acknowledgement. The second thing to note is as we have a new safety division and did some reorging, we just realigned the board agenda with the restructure. And then finally, originally this was brought back to the board at Vice Mayor's request that we have the request for future items in regular board meetings. Now this allows for requests for future items during special board meetings. So those are the main changes. And again, this is just first reading tonight. We recommend adoption or approval.
Dr. Gesson, one quick question. It has approval of minutes stricken out.
Oh, thank you. So in order to streamline, minutes don't have to be action. And so as I've talked to a couple of you, like what are ways we can continue to make board meetings a little bit faster? So in this model, it actually has minutes as a consent agenda and not an action item. You all can, if you want to make that change back to normal, you can. But this is just one slight way to streamline board meetings for you all.
One comment, Madam Chair.
So,
Madam Chair, just one quick comment. I'm very excited for Achievement to be on here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, we've heard from several board members, achievement matters, so build achievement into the agenda itself. So it's now in there very clearly.
So we need a motion.
Second.
A motion to approve has been made by Ms. Ross and seconded by Mr. Prescott. Is there any further discussion? On the motion, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. The next The next regular meeting of the governing board is scheduled for Thursday, October 6th at 6 p.m. here at the district office. Item 13B, request for future agenda items. Members, are there any items you would like to recommend to be considered for future board agendas?
You're messing up the flow, brother. You're messing up the flow. Let's do this. What was my future agenda item? What's that?
So we'd like a study session on the items from the Black American report. Is that correct?
Yes, study session. We don't have to vote on it, I'm just requesting.
No. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's no vote, it's just a request. So study session, is that what you're saying?
This was your idea, but yeah, a study session.
Yes, I would like a study session based on our conversation earlier tonight. Can you not hear me? It's on.
Yeah, we heard you. That was perfect.
To do a full report of the Jedi?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The two other things I was going to request was I was looking. It came to my attention that the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, when they meet, they do on their consent agenda items. Not only board members, but any member of the public can pull a consent agenda item. And I don't know if that's something other school boards do, or if that's only at other jurisdictions. And then the second thing that I noticed about the way they run their meetings was that there's a general public comment period that's standard on their agendas, but then the public has a chance to comment on each agenda item specific to it as it comes up. So there's always a pause to allow.
You never want to get out of here.
So I would request looking at those two things, is allowing the public to pull consent agenda items, and then also creating an opportunity for the public to give comment as we're going, so they're not just cramming it all in at the beginning, and then it's not relevant by the time we get to the agenda item that they might care about.
Are there any other suggestions for this list tonight for future agenda items?
So,
Okay,
Yeah, I think Vice Mayor might make a comment. Or
I just want to get clarification. You're asking for that to come to agenda to have a dialogue and see what legally we can do. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then President Alston, Board Member Marquez, I think that just to not be lost in the discussion tonight, I think I heard an interest from the board to potentially consider a resolution around voting age. So I want to just at least read that into record, that I think that's something I heard from you all that might be a consideration. You're welcome.
okay, well, those will all be considered. Item 13C, the one you've been waiting for.
So move. You don't have to read it. 13C. Have a great night.
Motion to adjourn. Having concluded our business, is there a motion to adjourn and a second?
So move.
A motion has been made by Ms. Pastor, seconded by Ms. Ross. On the motion, are those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please indicate by saying nay. The motion carries. We are adjourned.